Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome for today's session. I hope all of you are keeping well and you have revised the first chapter. You have started reading it from the reference material or the book that is provided by the institution. I hope all of you are dealing with that. That's a bare minimum that you have to deal with, right? So, good morning, all of you. Yeah. All right. So, as we are proceeding further ahead with the components pertaining to ethics, the next subsegment that we were going to deal with is associated with consequence of ethics. Pertaining to consequences of ethics, the nature of question which UPSC has indulged in, or the kind of question that has been asked so far, you can see this: what ethics seeks to promote. So, what ethics seeks to promote? What? Means like what are the aspiration, what is the outcome that ethics wants to create, right? So this is something which you are supposed to deal with when we are talking about it. So what ethics seeks to promote in human life, when we are reflecting upon the same, all of us can see this, that this is associated with the possibility of the impact of ethics, like what is the positive impact that ethics aspires to create. That is something which is there in the syllabus over here. So yesterday ARM, which was supposed to be there at 7 p.m., is not there yet. Please raise the concern. Okay, I think that SME will notice that and bring that in. I reading it will not create any difference. Is ethical nihilism, ethical universalism, and ethical relativism, Pulkit, I was discussing in the dimension of the types of ethics, determinants of ethics. When we were talking about it, I was connecting it with ethical relativism, and I was sharing that how ethics can be associated with time, place, and person. That's what. All right. Now, so as we are moving ahead, the second question which you can see is: explain how ethics contributes to, so how it contributes to the social and human well-being. Social and human well-being. So that is something which all of you can like take attention to. So like when we are speaking of these two questions, they are somewhere indirectly aspiring to ask the consequence or the relevance of ethics. So we can reflect upon the consequence or relevance of ethics from two perspectives: the positive consequence and the negative consequence. So, with respect to the component of positive consequence, if I'm talking about it, and the negative consequence, we need to reflect upon like the kind of I would say impact that is generated. You can see there is a very interesting quotation that is given on the board, that ethics is like electricity. What does it imply? That ethics is like electricity. It means that we cannot see ethics like articulate around us, because it's an abstract possibility which influences our thought process, right? But when we are talking about ethics like it is like electricity, we also imply to say that though electricity cannot be seen, but the impact of electricity can be seen. Like the room is lit, like there are so many different types of lights which are lit in this room. The AC is functional, right? So in the similar manner, like the system is functional, the camera is functional. So in the similar manner, ethics is something which cannot be observed like I would say in a more explicit manner, but the impact of ethics can be observed in the form of good governance, in the form of transparency, probity, accountability in governance, people becoming formidable stakeholders. That is something which we all can reflect upon. Again, when we are talking about ethics, we can also see that absence of ethics can impact the wholesome civilization of a country. Like, for example, if you have read the history of Japan or Germany, especially during the Second World War, all of you would be like surprised to see the nature of or the intensity of violation of human rights. The same Japan which today speaks, or it is the protagonist related to human rights, related to environmental rights, was the country which was indulging incessantly in different types of acts which was related to violation of human rights. Especially you can see what it did to Korea, what it did to China, Okay, even to a certain extent, the way it entered India and in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the kind of impact we could see. Same as with Germany, you could see that how Germany was gassing all the Jews, and the expansionism of Germany was also simultaneously coordinating with the abuse of human rights towards the Jews when we are speaking of it. So, SME, please support where she seems to not be connected. When will the class start? I mean, I think that she needs a response, that she needs to refresh her connection. So, that's also there. So, when we are speaking of this given possibility associated with ethics, we all can understand that when ethics was missing in Japan or in Germany, massive human rights violation was conducted by their respective, we can say, authorities. And today, when we see that these countries, they reflected upon the possibility, what they have lived, it has led to massive outcome. It has led to a massive rethinking and restructuring of their approach. Like today, when we are speaking of global refugee crisis, it is Japan and it is no, sorry, it's Germany which has come up with a formidable solution, and it is one of those countries which first and foremost participates in looking into refugee crisis and rehabilitation of the refugees. So you can see that when the Syrian crisis happened, Germany facilitated the refugees to travel all the way to Germany, and provide them with employment, shelter, and dignity to life. So when we are speaking of the concern, we can see that a country like Germany, whose history was so very different almost a century back, today has a completely different approach, outlook. Same with Japan. Today, we associate Japan with all good things like discipline and punctuality and compassion and cleanliness, okay, and a sense of being responsible towards the larger world. So, when we are speaking of this given dimension pertaining to ethics, we need to understand that ethics is something which is more abstract in nature, but the manifestation of it can be observed in the way a civilization is evolving, in the way a civilization is behaving. The manifestation of it can be observed. Now, so Shanvaz, you said that religion asserts that morality, that is will of God. What? For example, maybe ostracism and many case studies. So religion followers will keep from ethics bracket secular right. Now, this is like too much of shortcut. I believe you could have typed full sentences so that I would have made sense out of it. But what I'm perceiving, okay, is that religion asserts that morality is will of God. Uh, yes, okay. For example, ostracism. No, this is not the right example. Ostracism, when you are talking about it, ostracization is when you outcast a person from the community for not behaving in an ethical way. Okay, so how does it stand as an example of will of God? Okay, it is like punishment for not following that ethics, first thing. Second, as many case study. Now this is like an ambiguous in between statement, then there is a full stop, then you have written so religion means the followers will keep away from ethics. Why will they keep away from ethics when religion itself is advocating specific type of ethics, do's and don'ts, the right way to live, etc.? So why will, and who said that ethics is secular? Why were you absent yesterday towards the beginning of the session? Because I said in the sources of ethics that we gain ethics from multiple sources. One of them is also religion. So either you have not revised yesterday's PPTs, or you have not attended yesterday's class when it was being discussed, right? So there is a massive goof up in all the statements that you have typed. Also, I would encourage, kindly type full sentences so that it makes sense. All right. Japanese samurai burnt the villages all together with the people. Yes, yes, yes. The samurai culture was also quite, I would say, in a way, very aggressive and violent. So Germany has shut down their nuclear power also. Yes, so very true. So that's also there. Again, with respect to this, mm, yeah. So I think majority of the concerns have been taken up. So as we are further moving ahead, so ethics, we see that it is important. It is important because it gives us an insight that how we can have a better sense of existence, a better way of living. It also guides us with specific moral principles. It guides us with the right sense of do's and don'ts, which also improves the quality of our lives, right? It also ensures that we are able to respect the people around us and look into the concerns associated with them. So, with respect to this, as we further move ahead, when we are talking about the positive consequences of ethics, so in positive consequences, you can see I have just shared this Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs. So, this hierarchy of needs of Maslow. All right. So, when we are talking about hierarchy of needs theory of Maslow, this can be recalled and placed over here. Okay. So, here, when we are talking about basic human needs, as all of you can see, our basic human needs can be stratified in these levels. So, first one, as you can see, is the physiological needs, which is pertaining to the body, the basic needs and necessities pertaining to the body for its comfort and well being. The second is associated with our safety, whereby we are able to exist in a society in a safer quarter, whereby we feel that our needs are duly taken care of. Then comes the component of emotions, whereby love and belongingness of our family and friends is required. Then comes the psychological aspect associated with esteem, whereby all of us can see that the self esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, and respect by others is something that we aspire for. But above all of this is self actualization. Self actualization is when you have the tendency to give back to the society. And the phenomena of self actualization is not a one time process. One has to be very clear about it. It's not a one time process. When we are discussing about the component of self actualization, all of you need to understand that it is a continual phenomena. It's not like that today I did charity or today I supported the vulnerable sections and my work is done. No, not really. Self actualization gives us an insight that the component of supporting is not immediate. It is not just like something pertaining to what I'm dealing with or doing right now. It is associated with what all I can create over the time period. Okay, so and continually. That is something which all of us can reflect upon. So, Manoj, for that, go for dictionary. That's why every single day I keep encouraging all of you to become more comfortable in the usage of a dictionary. Anyway, so self actualization, when we are talking about it, self actualization makes you creative, morally upright. It also makes you bias free, prejudice free. You love effortlessly. You stand for all people. So, like, let us say if a doctor is self actualized, the person once in a week will treat the poorer sections for free, or maybe will take a token amount so that the self respect of the poor person is intact by taking 15 rupees or 20 rupees or 50 rupees, whatever, and providing the same quality of services which the person is extending to, like, let us consider a client who is paying 2000 rupees for a visit. So when we are talking about this component of self actualization, we all need to understand that it can be associated with anyone. It can be like a lawyer for once in a week is taking care of the case of vulnerable sections, or like let us say when we are speaking of a teacher, like empowering the children belonging to vulnerable sections. So when we are speaking of this term called self actualization, this is how we deal with it. This is how we go ahead with the given possibility, right? Now, when we are reflecting upon these given segments, All of us can see that self actualization, self esteem, love and belongingness, safety, the physiological aspects, all these dimensions, when we are reflecting upon it, we can see that it is creating the wholesome well being of an individual. So, when we are speaking of positive consequences of ethics, we can say that under the positive consequences of ethics being there in our life. So first we can talk about the individual perspective, and from the individual perspective we can say that it can satisfy or gratify the basic human needs, the basic human needs. Like for example, you can think of happiness, satisfaction, basic warmth. Second, you can see it can motivate people towards higher goals in life, higher goals in life, which can lead to what? It can lead to self respect, self esteem, and also self realization, self actualization, self actualization. Also, it helps people to reach the ideals. It helps people to reach the ideals. All right. So that's also there, which all of us can speak of it. Case study, bracket source, the Guardian, bracket close. Case study, source, the Guardian. What does that mean, Shanavas? Can you just write? Do you imply to say a case study that you have picked from the magazine, The Guardian? Because this is what I'm implying. One Roman Catholic family have faith in God, and we are quite happy for God's will to decide what happens to our two young daughters. First and foremost, Catholicism does not believe in plurality of gods. So quite happy for God's will. Okay, maybe apostrophe is missing, to decide what happens to our two young daughter nahi daughters hoga, so that he had left is the word, their two combined daughters. Human beings don't get combined, who need to be separate. Okay, probably you are talking about co-joint twins, right? So I ask that religion versus ethics, huh? Mm, you better type in Hindi. I'll get to understand what is the question, because the concern, still what you are writing is not making any sense to me, Shanvaz, because I'm tentatively getting some brief hint that probably what you are talking about, but still I'm unable to understand the question. There is so much of text, and yet the interpretation of question is missing. So can you just type it in Hindi for that sense of ease, that I can interpret what you aspire to ask? So, and Manoj, you have written Indian pective. Please tell again. My connection was lost. Indian pective. Oh, students need to learn first how to type their queries. Okay. So, first and foremost, I discussed about the individual perspective, as all of you can see, that the positive consequence of ethics, when we are discussing about, the first consequence can be reflected from the individual perspective, for which we have highlighted the hierarchy of needs theory of Maslow, in which we can see that with ethics we can fulfill our basic needs, we can satisfy our basic needs, needs pertaining to happiness, attaining attainment of some emotional warmth in life. It can motivate people towards higher goals in life, attainment of self respect, self esteem, even self actualization. So, with ethics, we work towards that very possibility whereby we are not earning or working only for ourselves, but also contributing to the larger betterment of the society, right? So, आत्म सम्मान जिसको कहते हैं ना, that is associated with esteem, Abhishek. And if you struggle with Hindi also, then you'll have to use dictionary. Again, further, it helps people to reach the ideals. So it helps the people to reach ideals because it ethics constantly guides us that what is the actual purpose of us working, of us contributing, of us doing things accordingly. All right. So here, as we are further moving ahead, positive consequences of ethics, it helps us to social ecosystem like fraternity. Yes, definitely, social welfare, fraternity, that's something there which is what we can connect with. S- um, uh, Sometimes ethics may go in conflict with culture as well. It the very possibility of it is something which creates ethical dilemma, isn't it? I haven't understood how it is connecting to ideal. How ethics is connecting to ideal. Self actualization, when you have it, you get connected to the ideals of your life, isn't it, Ilma? You start working towards self actualization. I explained, Ajay. I did explain what is Shalu, Ajay, all these people. Suppose someone is just joining the session, 5 minutes later, will be again asking what is self actualization. Means after 5 minutes, again, I should refrain from using the term self actualization for people who join the session late. So, self actualization is associated with our capability to understand what is the final purpose of living. Self actualization, if it is with a doctor, the person tries to go an extra mile by supporting the patients beyond the salary or other like benefits the person is getting from the hospital or his or her clinic. The person goes an extra mile to support the poorer sections. Maybe once in a week, a free diagnostic or health camp or checkup. Maybe a lawyer can go for a like 1 day free consultation. A teacher can go for few students studying for free or at a subsidized rate because they belong to vulnerable sections. Self actualization can be created by anyone. It's not only that IAS officers can create, anyone and everyone. That's why the component of self actualization can be there in any person and can be missing in any person. When it is missing in IAS officers, it's then that they become corrupt. 200 crore, 500 crore rupees. When you read all this, it is when the person is empowered, but only for oneself. But the person is not empowered to give back to the society. The person started earning, like getting a salary, started enjoying the power, but forgot what responsibilities come with that power. So self actualization is something which makes you answerable, responsible to the environment in which you are, I would say, living, to the society in which you are living. So it's a continual phenomena of giving back to the society, and anyone can do that. Maybe you can see that there have been old women who have become environmentalists and they have created forests. And last to last year, two such women were given Padma Shri award. There can be people like, for example, in Brahmaputra, the Majuli island. It was initially quite deserted, and it was afforested by one man's effort. He kept making that effort for more than a decade, and that is how it just converted into a huge green patch. In the similar manner, when we are speaking of it, there was this incident coming from Pune. I'm forgetting that lady's name. I think many of you can recall. So this woman, she was basically thrown out of her house by her husband because he was into an extramarital, and he threw her out, married that other woman, and she was pregnant. She lost her baby. She started begging. In the process of begging, whatever she used to get, the minimal that she used to get, she started feeding the orphans, the street urchins, the animals, the stray animals, and everyone noticed her kindness, so everyone started giving her all the more. So she started receiving more charity, more food, more such support, And bit by bit, she started nurturing a lot of orphans, a lot of animals, and in the process, she became quite popular, and she ended up educating more than 30 children of that vicinity. And today, hundreds of people are under her support. And her husband, ex-husband, I should say, he lost his wife, he became an alcoholic, he had his own problems, and in his old age, while he was ailing and dying, he like reached out to his ex-wife, and then he sought for forgiveness, and he said that you have adopted so many children, so many orphans, can you adopt me as well? I really need a person who gives that motherly love and care to me, and I'll be really indebted. So she was the one, yeah, Sindhutai, that was her name. So Sindhutai Sapkal. So this lady, she like went ahead. So when I say self actualization, it's not that only when you are economically well off that you can exercise self actualization. Any person in his or her capacity can exercise self actualization. It is more associated with the temperament of an individual and less to do with, I would say, the possibility of who the individual is exposed to. Okay. So, if a person is saying, well, I'm not economically well off, it is associated with your temperament towards life. It is not, it is just not connected, it is just not related to your economic condition per se. You can give back to the your biome, to your society, to your ecosystem, social ecosystem, in so many ways possible when we are speaking of it. Okay. So that is what is self actualization. So at individual level, ethics can help us to reach our ideals. When I say so, it is associated with self actualization, ideals to serve the society, ideals to give back to the society, ideals to, like, stand for the people by and large. All right. So that's something which all of us can speak of. So I hope I have sought all the segments pertaining to it. Now, with respect to this, अब अगर I'm assuring this to all of you, that if again after 5 minutes someone asks me what is self actualization, you all can understand that how it will be a triggering factor after explaining it in greater detail, someone randomly joining in and again asking, ma'am, what is self actualization? Right. So it's like, first poor sense of discipline, and then by and by wasting the time of the class and mine in terms of asking the same question. So, I mean, you people, the rest of you who are present in time, will be prepared to see such situation unfold. So, ma'am, this case study shows that belief on will of God contradicts with ethics. And Einstein also said that religion should keep away from ethics. So, I ask this to avoid the cluster of religion. Hence, do we need another source of ethics, not religion? No, Shanwaz. Let me share this with you. Across the world, when people do charity, across the world, when people have a sense of right and wrong, that we should not cheat others, we should not hurt others, we should not perform theft, we should not kill others, a lot of values of do's and don'ts also comes from ethics. On the basis of one singular case study, I don't know what that case study is because it's not mentioned here, that belief on will of God contradicts with ethics. I mean, belief in will of God is something which for majority of people and civilizations across the world gives them the idea of what is right and what is wrong. Okay, so it contradicts with ethics is something which probably, on the basis of one singular case study, I don't know what that case study is and what you are referring to, arriving at such a possibility is like something which is problematic. One second, when you're saying that Einstein also said that religion should keep away from ethics, well, that was his perspective, but he was also the man who spoke of consciousness, and he's also spoke of the possibility of there is something beyond human governance and human insight. So Einstein, if you see, he never negated the presence of God. In fact, you can see Einstein's perspective about science, and Einstein was not an atheist per se. So, probably that's also a faulty opinion when we are speaking of this given dimension. So, and on the basis of one thinker, one scientist, one case study, we cannot form a generalized opinion that ethics has nothing to do with religion, or ethics, when inspired by religion, does not lead to an ethical behavior or a correct behavior. This is what I'm saying. Okay, rest is up to you. If you still want to continue with that opinion, that will create it. No, no, Mrityunjay, please don't put words in other people's mouth. I think he's relating with Islam. No, in Islam, there is a very, very, I would say, a deep sense of impact in terms of ethical behavior. All right. So keep your opinions to yourself and don't borrow it unnecessarily to other people when they don't need it. So when we speak of whether it is Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, majority of the religions across the world, they constantly say so to their followers. What are the do's and don'ts? What is the ethical behavior? What is the ideal behavior? What is the expected behavior? Hence, beyond doubt, like ethics with respect to its source material, it gains its insight from a religion. All right. If you still have to counter, Shanvaz, you can come up with some more formidable dimension. It's perfectly fine. I'll keep countering it. But whenever you are arriving at an opinion, see that what is the generalized worldview, the facts of the case, and then arrive at an opinion. Can you really deny that majority of the people across the world, they don't get inspired by their religion, and majority of the religion across the world do not talk about do's and don'ts in the private lives of people? Can you deny that? And if not, then in the do's and don'ts, majority of the religion, they preach about the ethical behavior that ought to be followed, right? In the process of preachers giving a faulty interpretation can lead to fundamentalist or a communal behavior, right? But on an average, when we are talking about the higher ideals of majority of the religion across the world, it is to spread harmony, peace, and fraternity. Okay. Now, so with respect to it, Ajay, with respect to your question, is it associated with what we are dealing with, right? When we are discussing about it. And Ajay, as you are asking about polygamy, with respect to Islam, are you aware that 1971 census of India reflects this thing, that the number of polygamous Hindus was far greater than Muslims? Are you aware of this basic fact that culturally and historically, Hindus have practiced polygamy for centuries together? You have studied Ramayana, and King Dashrath had three wives. Was that not polygamy? You just read about the history of just 100 years back, 50 years back. Majority of kings, feudal lords, and anyone who was well off, belonging to upper caste or any affluent community, was having concubines or more than one wife. So what kind of ridiculous question is this? You could have said it like, what really triggers is that in the ethics class, how can you people have opinionated questions pertaining to one religion? If this question was said, refer to faculty, ma'am, polygamy is allowed in Islam, is it true to ethics? You could have said polygamy has been culturally accepted in many religions across the world, is it ethical? It would have made sense, because polygamy has been a practice across the world in many civilizations. The thing is, polygamy, it had come into existence because of the process of annexation of territories, because of expansion of territories, because of decreasing the role of women and making them in subservient position. And it was also because of, we can say, the physical or the muscular strength being exercised to take control of area or control of a given region. So whenever muscular strength will be given a lot of importance, it will be the males who will gain importance in a society. When you will give importance to the brains, in that situation, power balance will come into existence. As in post-industrial society, you can see men and women are competent in terms of getting jobs in all kinds of scenario, right? So I expect this from all of you, that please, have a balanced sense of reflection, and it is very important. Okay, Nitesh, please don't direct me what I should skip and why I should not skip something, because these concerns are also associated with ethical thought process and behavior that students need to possess as they are evolving with the given chapters. Because you have secularism in your syllabus in GS paper 1, you have communalism in GS paper 1, you have secularism in GS paper 2. In GS paper 4, you have the component of ethics, whereby we are talking about societal ethics. So, societal ethics will be how people can harmonize and stay with each other. When constitutional ethics are lost, it is then that we have biased opinions towards specific communities. The constitutional ethics will always guide you towards justice, fairness, equality, and also it guides you to a fair understanding of history, civilization, and culture. Right? I hope all of you are able to understand this given dimension. Right? Is it clear, Ajay? I hope you got a clarity about how to reflect upon given situations and how to have a more balanced opinion while responding, okay, to any given question. So rather than having, I would say, what to say, prejudiced opinions, always know facts as facts. There is difference between common sense and having a factual backing to what opinions you frame. So refrain yourself from common sense, because there is a chapter of civil services values which also speaks of non-partisan behavior and impartiality. So the value in civil services of impartiality can be exercised when you know facts as facts, facts with respect to history, facts with respect to the current scenario. In the absence of knowing the facts as facts, it will create biased or prejudiced opinion. And if you exercise that in the exam, in the form of an example or a statement, rest of the answer is perfectly fine. One statement can trigger the attention of the examiner, and the examiner can smell, can sense that, oh, here is an imbalanced person. See, the purpose of the examiner is not to find an academically sound person. 80% आंसर बहुत अच्छा लिखा, इसको 80% पे मार्क्स दो, नहीं. उसको पता है why the person is getting into like evaluating the answer. So the person can see that if your answer is holding any of the characteristic which is unbecoming of a civil servant, which is not in consonance with the larger values or ideals of a civil servant, the examiner can deduct marks, can give you 30 negative marks. Are you aware of it? 25 to 35 negative marks. This kind of intellectual freedom is given to the UPSC examiner, that if the examiner gets triggered by a statement in which the examiner is seeing that something is not in the larger consonance with the ideals of civil services, the examiner can slap that 30 35 marks, even on a lesser side 25 marks penalty on a student. And when does a student invite such possibilities? In ethics paper, a student can invite such a possibility when the answer is based on some biased, prejudiced opinion. Okay, I hope all of you are getting some idea. So this is something, um, yeah, there are two Nitesh in the class, no worry. So I hope all of you are getting an idea associated with this given segment. Ajay, is it clear? Is it clear how, like, and what ought to be understood and how it ought to be responded? Yes? सो बोनस भी दे सकते हैं, नहीं मनोज, बोनस तो कोई नहीं देता, ठीक है. देयर इज नो प्रोविजन फॉर बोनस, बट 35 नेगेटिव मार्क्स का प्रोविजन है. If anything is not in the larger consonance or ideals of the expectation of the examiner, or the civil services values, then it can happen. Ajay, are you still present and are you still like connected to the session? Because for your sake I just gave so much of explanation how to handle the content. All right, so god knows now he's not even responding. This is like, I don't know what kind of behavior when you're supporting a child. Anyway, so moving ahead with respect to this, we can also see ethics and its impact with respect to organizational level. SME, please support Shanawaz with his query, because thrice I have seen it is going haywire. So just reflect upon that, and some minuscule queries which I'm not able to support right now. Let me get back to the given dimension. So organizational level, when we are talking about the consequence of ethics at organizational level, we can see that ethics at organizational level can create like a cooperative and a healthy work culture, where there is trust and credibility between people within the organization. There is a very inclusive way of taking decisions. There is a sustainable way of taking decisions, which is in consonance with the larger concerns of, we can say, the larger concerns of the examiner, right? So that's something which all of us can consider. So with respect, why 35 marks penalty is given for 15 marks question? Okay, Abhijit, 35 marks question is it's not 35 marks which is deducted for a 15 marks question. It is a way that the examiner ensures that a student who is not having the ideals of a civil servant does not make it to the list. It is like, you can consider, a weapon which is given to the examiner to ensure that any person who still has a scope to prepare better, who still has the scope to develop civil services values better, let that person come the next year. This year the person is not fit because the values or the ideals have yet not been evolved sufficiently, and if such person is selected in the services, the person can create chaos or biased possibilities. Okay, and that is the reason why such individuals are prohibited or hindered by the examiner by imposing that 25 to 35 penalty marks. It is for all the 4 GS papers and essay. All the 4 GS papers and essay. Okay. So, and yes, also it can be exercised in the optional paper. So, in any of the papers, if a student is able to trigger an unconstitutional thought or behavior, because in the end of the day, you are going to be the keeper of the constitution, the protector of the constitution. And if your opinions are unconstitutional, or it is not in consonance with the larger ideals of the constitution, then in that situation, you yet need to prepare. So it's not the answer के basis पे number नहीं मिल रहा है. Please be very clear about it. It's not only the answer which is fetching you the marks. Through the answer, what is getting evaluated? Is it the content that is only getting evaluated? No. Via content, your personality is getting evaluated, whether you're suitable for the system or not. So via content, when the personality is getting evaluated, and in the content, if there is a trigger factor, okay, then in that situation, it can backfire. Okay, there are other ways also to like backfire. Like, suppose a person gives an information which is like, let's say, not in the larger consonance of the demand of the question. Like, suppose the question is asking x and a student writes y angle. So if once it happens, the examiner can sense that, okay, the child interpreted the question incorrectly. But suppose if the question is A, the child is writing B, the question is C, the child is writing D, and this has been done continually, like question after question, 3 or 4 questions. This is intellectual corruption. This is something which we perform during university days. Like, students do that, that पूछो सनम कुछ भी लिखेंगे जो आता है. Right? That whatever is the examiner asking, I don't care. I'll write what I have memorized and I have gone for the exam. Right? So in that situation, some students, they prepare 5 or 10 answers and they just write that in the university answer sheet. That's fine for university exams. Still, the examiner, like, sometimes out of sheer kindness, okay, let me give some 30-40% marks, pass the child. All that can happen maybe at university level, but not UPSC level. If at UPSC level something else is asked and the child is writing another information which has nothing to do with the question, once it can be entertained. Maybe the child interpreted the question incorrectly. But if it is happening question after question after question for 4 to 5 times, that's like you are dissuading the examiner, you are creating an intellectual corruption, you are diverting the attention of the examiner from the core demand of the question, and that can also invite penalty marks. Okay, so penalty marks is not only for not falling in line with the constitutional values. All right, that's also something which we can talk about. How frequently they use this weapon? Very rarely. Once in a while a student gets the prasadam. Okay, so I have at least, like, for past 7-8 years, I have come across few students getting this. So that's also there. So and that's something which all of you need to remember with respect to your wholesome preparation. Whatever the GS paper it is or essay paper it is, just remember not to write anything motivated by any kind of biased ideology that you're continually exposed to via so many platforms of social media. Okay, so with respect to this, when I'm talking about at organizational level, when we are talking about the consequence of ethics, so at organizational level, I said that it can create a cooperative or a healthy work culture. So this will promote, like we can say, good relationships, right? So good relationships between, we can say, the leader and the employees. So the leader, the team leader, and the employees. We can also see that trust and credibility between people and organizations can be established. For example, you can think of the Tatas, right? You can also think of Infosys, right? So these companies, they enjoy a very high level of credibility in the market. Okay, it is something which you all can connect with. How is it known that they are punished? In the mark sheet, it is written 25 penalty marks, 30 penalty marks, 35 penalty marks. Okay, in the mark sheet, it is mentioned. So few of them are also uploaded on Google search. You can find few of them. Few you won't, because students are ashamed to share it, but students have shared it in the past with me, because definitely I am the teacher. So when the final mark sheet is out, मैम पेनल्टी लग गया, मैंने कहा कहाँ लिख दिया भाई गोबर, बीच में कहीं तो कुछ गोबर लिखा है जिसके वजह से पेनल्टी मिल गया है, and students reaching to the interview and not making it because of that penalty marks. All right, so the thing is, then you feel disappointed, because you know that somewhere something has triggered the examiner, because you understand that with that missing 35 marks, a child could not make it to the list. A child who would have been an IPS officer is not in the list at all, just because of the penalty marks. All that stuff also happens. And after reaching the interview level, appearing for the interview, then getting the mark sheet, then seeing that I'm not in the list because of the penalty marks, is a very sad fact. Anyway, so with respect to it, when we are further moving ahead, we can also see the third one, that it facilitates, or it helps organizations for inclusive and sustainable decision making. All right, so I hope all of you are able to understand this, right? With respect to this, when we are further moving ahead, we can see at societal level the impact or the consequence of ethics. When we are talking about it, it can generate social capital. Social capital, for example, I can say the second ARC, you can see ninth report, um, the like shares this title, a shared destiny, a shared destiny. And what is this, a shared destiny? When ethics is followed at societal level, we can see that ethics, when followed at societal level, it does create this given possibility, okay, of creating a social capital where people come together as a consolidated, wholesome, we can say, society, civilization, a country, a culture, and they try to negotiate for their own well being with consolidated effort, whereby all of them come together. That is something which all of you can understand. With respect to this, again, when we are speaking of it at societal level, what is the impact of, like, let's say, ethics? So at societal level, the consequence is it can give progress to a society with values. Okay, so it can shape the possibilities of a given society with respect to, we can say, certain specific values which are formidable for the growth of the society, right? So we can also see it can also strengthen. So like what kind of values when we speak of it? So values, we can consider it related to equality, tolerance, liberty, justice. All right, all these subsegments can be taken up when we are talking about it. Fraternity, altruism, so all those segments can be taken up, etc. I'm just putting it. So also it can safeguard a society from different types of crimes and social evils. When I say crimes and social evils, for example, you can think of child labor, you can think of dowry, right? So you can think of the possibilities associated with any such imbalanced or biased behavior, which also leads to compromising with the uprightness of a society per se, isn't it? Yes, human trafficking, organ trafficking, any form of abuse of human rights can be like taken over here. All right. So with respect to this, when we are okay, ma'am, what is inclusive and sustainable decisions? Inclusive when the opinion of all is incorporated, that's what inclusive means. So people from the lower hierarchy or rung of power, means whether it is a clerk or a peon, okay, or it is the manager, or it is the CEO, the opinion of all at different levels is incorporated. What is the do's, what are the don'ts? So decision is not like, as per the expertise of individuals, the decisions of all are considered. So like, let's say if it is associated with food menu, if it is associated with cleanliness, if it is associated with ethos of the office, punctuality, discipline, greeting the customers, so inclusiveness in the decisions, how we should treat the customers, the opinion of everyone can be taken, even a clerk or a peon's opinion can be taken. Now when we are speaking of taking decisions at higher level, then probably the managers and the CEOs and presidents and vice presidents can sit and talk, not that, oh, the person is a junior manager or assistant manager, why to seek his opinion or her opinion? So that's inclusive decision making. Sustainable means when the decision is helpful for a long term, like, basis. So that's also something which we can talk about. Yes, child marriage can also be incorporated, Utkarsh. All right. So prostitution is incorporated when we say human trafficking, Kivika, isn't it? So is it subjective for different people to decide if it is ethical or not? Well, with respect to it, if it is, in majority of the cases, there are two segments associated with it. Is it coercive? Like a person is moving into it by choice, or is it coercive, first and foremost? And second thing is how legal, and how legal is it with different types of social safeguards? If both the elements are missing, then definitely it is not something pertaining to ethics. Now, so with respect to this, as I believe you all are able to understand the component of ethics, we can further move ahead with it. Ek minute, negative consequence wala diagram kahan gaya? Haan, this is what. So after this positive consequence, we can also talk about this negative consequences. Negative consequences, when now negative consequences not of ethics, negative consequences when ethics are not there, not there. Okay, ethical principles are not there, or they are not consolidated when we speak of it. So with respect to this, when we are speaking of this negative consequences, first and foremost we can talk about the component pertaining to international level. In international level, when we are talking about, like, let's say conflicts, okay, conflicts between nations. So conflicts between nations can increase if there is lack of, like, ethics. There can be increase in power struggle and weapon race. So power struggle, weapons race, it can retard the wholesome growth, right? So the wholesome growth can be retarded. This can lead to polarization of the world, polarization of the world can increase. There can be various global problems which can increase in global problems. Like for example, you can connect it with like refugee crisis, terrorism, drug abuse, right? Global levels of corruption, etc. Right? There will be like all this can lead to like trust deficit at global level. This can also hinder cooperation in space, so hinder space cooperation. It can increase nuclear race. It can also lead to, I would say, it can also increase protectionism. Beyond a point, protectionism can also be threatening for global integration. So protectionism can increase. So all that stuff can be like incorporated. Yes, it can also lead to environmental disaster, right? So all of you can, I hope, now connect with all these possibilities. At national level, when we are talking about it, so at national level there can be loss of cooperative federalism, right? Loss of cooperative federalism, constitutional morality. There can be also like criminalization of politics. We can see there can be, in general, crime rate can increase, corruption can increase, political corruption or all forms of corruption, it can increase. It can also lead to a civil war like situation, right? There can be horse trading in like the political arena, right? So all these communalization of politics can happen. Loss of cooperative federalism is what is conflict between center and state, or state and state, Mr. M. Narendra. Okay. So protectionism, IR, Vikas. Just read about it. You'll get to understand that, right? So that's something which all of you can talk about it. I don't understand what is DEC in welfare schemes. What is DEC? I mean, like you can always write a full word. So yeah, I hope all of you are able to understand. So a lot of points you can keep adding. Once you've got the hint, I think you are capable to deal with it. At organizational level, corruption first and foremost can come. We can talk about unequal services. There can also be nepotism that can enter in a system. There can be favoritism that can enter in a system when we are speaking of it. There can also be something associated with trust and credibility. Trust and credibility in an organization can go down. उसको एक मिनट नीचे करना था. So trust and credibility can go down. Regionalism can increase. um, with respect to this, no wait, regionalism में तो थोड़ा सा उसको दूसरे पॉइंट से कनेक्ट कर देंगे, because in an organization, like you are working in southern part of India, you are experiencing a discrimination with respect to North India. You're working in North India, you are experiencing a discrimination being a South Indian. So all that stuff can also happen in at organizational level. So in simple language, the work culture can get affected. Okay. Efficiency, the three E's of, like, oh, just a second. So we can think of efficiency, economy, and effectiveness. The three E's of a company, or rather, the three E's of a company can get affected, right? So you can keep adding to this also. Again, at social level, you can think of problems like mob lynching, moral policing, all the Valentine's Day beating that happens, whereby the hockey sticks are like shining. And you can think of regionalism, you can think of casteism, you can think of communalism, all forms of crime against vulnerable sections, specifically organized crime also. So organized crime, will also increase when we speak of it. Okay, so that's something which all of you can connect with when we are speaking of it. We can also put etc, because now you can keep adding to it. Again, at individual level, you can speak of discrimination of all forms. So discrimination within your four walls of the household. So discrimination on the basis of, like, let's say, caste, religion, there can be gender, right? There can be over materialism, so over consumerism, which is also in other words called hedonism, right? There can be addiction of different types. So addiction, it can lead to domestic violence. It can also lead to increase in the rate of divorce and separation. It can also lead to what kind of other possibilities can I say? It can be also based on class discrimination, so class based discrimination and violence. Narcissism is a part of hedonism and all that. So this is what we all can speak of, right? So I hope all of you are able to understand this bit. So again, I hope you are able to see the negative consequences if the ethics is missing in a society. If ethics is not there, what all can happen in that segment. You can reflect upon this and you can definitely add more points associated with it, isn't it? So now, as we are further moving ahead with respect to this, we can also talk about the dimensions associated with, we can say, the moral philosophy, and with respect to which we can further go ahead with this. Over consumerism is hedonism, Shweta, as you're asking about it. So when you are like just indulging in material pleasures of life. So, and what is nepotism? When you are favoring individuals on the basis of the relations that you share, that's something which is associated with it. Anyway, so when we are discussing about classification or the dimensions of ethics, okay, so, if any student is struggling with vocabulary, you should keep noting. See, I mean, I'm already noting down the words. Once the session is over, get into the habit of referring to the dictionary. Always tell yourself that my vocabulary is of a standard 8th level kid. And if I've not read newspapers also in last like 2 years or 3 years, then I'll struggle with vocabulary all the more. So I should be open to enhance my vocabulary, strengthen my word power, because in the absence of it you won't be able to substantiate the content per se, right? Okay, now with respect to classification or dimension of ethics, when we are speaking of it, you all can see that here there is a dimension whereby I've said ethics can be divided into theoretical and applied perspective. With respect to theoretical and applied perspective, we can see applied is associated with professional ethics or ethics focusing on one's scope of life. So here when we are speaking of it, this professional ethics can be associated with a lot of types, like biomedical ethics when we speak of it, or like, let's say, corporate ethics, or you must have heard of environmental ethics, right? Or you also must have heard of like public sector ethics, public sector ethics, ethics for media, sports. So, ethics for media. Similarly, you should also have sports ethics where you're not exercising any kind of doping or any such, nowadays we are also talking about cyber ethics, right? So, etc, when we are talking about professional ethics, okay, so we can reflect upon all those given possibility. Yes, corporate ethics is mentioned, Abhijit, third last, you can notice, right? So professional ethics or when we are talking about applied ethics is what this is all about. Theoretical ethics, when we speak of it, so theoretical ethics can be associated with, as you can see, normative ethics and descriptive ethics. Under normative ethics, all of you can see there is deontological, teleological, and along with this deontological and teleological, we also have virtue ethics, right? So and then you have, under descriptive ethics, you can find this component of meta ethics, right? So with respect to this, yes, ethical hacking is associated with cyber ethics, Aniket, right? So with respect to this, when we are further substantiating this classification of ethics, and when we reflect upon it, like delve upon it deep enough, first and foremost we can speak of certain specific dimensions pertaining to it. So I think I should first and foremost take one more sheet and explain before Albert Camus' segment. Wait, I'll just add a slide and then probably substantiate it for all of you. um, yeah, okay. So here, when we are reflecting upon all these different types of ethics, let us take one by one the segments. So here all of us can see the segment is written descriptive ethics, right? You can see this descriptive ethics. So what is descriptive ethics? Descriptive ethics is how people should act. Okay, so how people should act, how people should act is the concern of descriptive ethics when we are speaking of it. And or rather in simpler language, maybe I should just squeeze the language and then write it for you. Wait. So pen. So under the descriptive component, very briefly, if I have to write, is how people in different cultures act. When you try to describe that, how people in different cultures act, that is a part of descriptive ethics per se. Again, with respect to this descriptive ethics, when we connect it with meta ethics, okay, so meta ethics, what is it? So meta ethics deals with what, does the concept of right even mean? So what does right even mean? What does right even mean? That's the concern of meta ethics. Okay. And there are multiple issues associated with this component of meta ethics. Like there can be metaphysical issues, there can be ethical universalism versus ethical relativism. Like yesterday we were discussing whether to see ethics relative to person, place, or situation, or should, or time for that matter, or should we see ethics as a universal principle that times may change, place may change, situation may change, but the undercurrent, the bottom line of ethics remains constant or same. It is the manifestation that changes. It's not the core ethics that change. Like love and respect for parents remains the same at all ages. But how out of love, out of respect we behave towards them may differ culturally. Okay, so that was ethical universalism, if you can connect with. Again, there can be the psychological issue also, which can be associated with meta ethics, like why be moral, what is the purpose of being moral, right? Again, we can see there can be ethical rationalism versus ethical sentimentalism, which is also dealt in the component of meta ethics when we are discussing about it, right? So when we are discussing about all these given statements, we all can reflect upon the component of meta ethics. So probably I can just mention it over here. I think I should just shift my chair, or maybe I should just get up because it's uncomfortable. Okay. So when we are talking about the component of, like, let's say, metaphysical issues. So here meta ethics first and foremost. Just a second. So if, like, let us consider, if I'm talking about meta ethics, because if you are able to see the diagram, you are able to connect with it more profoundly. So when I'm talking about meta ethics, so with respect to meta ethics, I can consolidate the insights like related to let's say meta ethics. It deals with first metaphysical issues. What is metaphysical issues? Metaphysical issues deals with, whether ethics belongs to this world or not. Metaphysical issue will deal with, whether ethics are absolute and universal in nature, universal in nature, or they are relative to, relative to time, place, person, and need to change accordingly. Need to change accordingly. In other words, like, we can also talk about the possibility of ethical universalism, ethical universalism versus ethical relativism. Also, meta ethics can deal with psychological issues. Psychological issues, what are they? So the psychological issues, like, we can consider, why be moral? Why should we be moral? That's one of the fundamental questions, I would say, associated with ethics. This was a question which was raised by Draupadi to Yudhishthira in, Mahabharata. So there, like, after he lost the game of dice, and he was on exile, and he was, in the forest, he was sitting outside his hut on a, like, a huge large piece of stone. So then, and it had been a month. So Draupadi was highly frustrated, and she's like, today you are sitting on this piece of stone, whereas you should have been sitting on an encrusted throne, which was encrusted with a lot of precious gems and diamonds and gold, all that stuff. So, and today you are sitting on this piece of stone only because of your dharma or ethics. So, why to be ethical? What is the benefit of you becoming ethical? Because of your ethics, we lost everything. So, you could have raised an army, people supported you, you could have attacked Hastinapur, you could have gained your power back. So, what is the utility of your morality? What are we gaining because of you being moral? So, this question, why being moral, was raised. That's why I said that we seek a lot of examples and insights pertaining to ethics, even from religion, because it raises a lot of doubts and questions. And especially, I'll tell you, not much from Ramayana or, any other textbook. You'll find me quoting a lot from Mahabharata, because Mahabharata is not a religious book. Mahabharata is not Gita. Mahabharata is not Ramayana. Mahabharata is not any other religious book per se. It is said that there is no sin existing in the world if it is not mentioned in Mahabharata. Means Mahabharata was a book which was incorporating all forms of deviant acts, crimes, and sin prevailing in a society. So, Mahabharata is a book of moral inquiry. What is moral, and what ought to be done, and what ought not to be done. And in different chapters and in different seasons, उसमें अलग-अलग पर्व हैं. Okay, so in different chapters and different seasons, there is a constant debate over moral inquiry. What ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Continually, you will be finding this given possibility. Okay, so that's something which I can encourage all of you, with respect to why I will be quoting in future also Mahabharata, not for religious reasons, just for raising the right set of moral inquiry. So as Draupadi, she kept, rebuking him. So Yudhishthir, he came up with a lot of answers. He said that, well, with ethics a society develops, with ethics we are able to set right standards for the society, with ethics a society is able to cooperate with each other, hence my behavior should always be ethical. Okay, so even Charles Darwin had said that ethics helps human beings to evolve according to their environment, to adapt better with their environment. Okay, so anyway, ethics is evolutionary in nature beyond doubt. So when he kept, Yudhishthir, he kept speaking that, then Draupadi was not getting satiated. She was like, no, that's not something which, I believe. You are called Dharmaraj. So he said that, okay, again the word dharma. Dharma, if you see in Rig Veda, it says that dharma is pertaining to the law of the cosmos, or rather the dharma is coming from the dhri dhatu. Dhri is associated with something which is balancing the earth. Okay, so dharma, if we are seeing it not from the Hindi meaning but from the Sanskrit meaning, the dharma is associated with moral code of conduct. It does not mean religion, it means duty or moral code of conduct. So when we reflect upon this given possibility, then Yudhishthira, he said that, well, if we are unethical, the consequences of it will be very harsh. We will be pushing people into an unethical war. Unnecessary bloodshed can happen. Okay. So please understand, Mahabharata is not a story of war. It is associated with that moral inquiry, which you'll always see, that constant debate and discussion over what is done and what ought to be done and what should have been done is constantly made. Anyway, so he says that if unethical behavior is carried forward, then life becomes a total mess. Self esteem is lost, level of guilt is high, dissonance is high. This The deep sense of remorse in an individual will be very high. Okay. He also said that after death also life is not good. Even after death, a person will be stuck in hell, and the person will be stuck in the cycle of birth and rebirth, and the person will not be able to attain moksha. So Draupadi was not getting satisfied. She's like, no, but I mean, all this afterlife and what the society will expect, experience, all this is a later day phenomena. Presently you are suffering, presently you are not having a good quality life. So what is the actual benefit of following dharma, or moral code of conduct, or why to be moral? So she kept pushing him further. Then finally, the response that Yudhishthira gave, that makes a lot of difference. He says that I am ethical because this is who I am. There is no other reason. I am ethical because this is who I am. This is what my personality is all about. This is what I must do. Hence, behaving ethically is effortless and natural to human beings. That comes to them if they are not regulating it with avarice or selfishness or other kind of human emotions. Being ethical, being moral is the most natural response that human beings hold, and that gets proved when Yudhishthira says, I am moral because this is who I am and this is what I aspire to do. I hope all of you are able to understand that, right? So again, you can see the similar sentiment was expressed by Ramakrishna Paramhans when Vivekanand saw that for past few days, whenever Ramakrishna Paramhans goes to meditate under a tree, just the spot where he sits down to meditate, there a scorpion, little scorpion is there. And he always removes it by picking it in his hand and then removing it so that it doesn't get hurt, and the scorpion stings him. So it's like, he asked his guru that, why are you always touching the scorpion? Why don't you kill it, or why don't you eliminate it? To which Ramakrishna Paramhans said that I am doing what I shall do, the scorpion is doing what it shall do. We all have our basic innate nature. So whatever is our, I would say, guiding principle in our innate nature, we tend to behave accordingly. So the scorpion is behaving as per its innate nature. I am behaving as per my innate nature. You can sense that. Okay. So again, there's this in Greek tradition, there is a quotation something like this, that let the evil come to the world, let it even dominate the world, but not through me, not through me. Okay. So when we are talking about it, that why be moral? Because being moral is the most natural expression of being human. All right. So I gave you a lot of examples from Yudhishthira to Greek tradition to, Ramakrishna Paramhansa. Okay. So that's something which all of you need to understand. So why be moral if we are talking about it? So you can think of, and again, Western philosophers also responded to it. So when we are talking about it from Indian philosophical perspective, being ethical or being moral is the most natural expression of human beings. Most natural expression of human beings, right? To which Yudhishthira, if I am quoting him, why I'm just writing, I hope you'll remember this is for Yudhishthira. He said that, like, without dharma, the whole world will sink into bottomless darkness. Okay, so without dharma, the whole world would sink into bottomless darkness. Bottomless darkness. Okay. Western philosophers and thinkers have also explained why be moral. They suggested that we should be moral because it helps us to avoid punishment, to gain praise, acceptance in society, to get greater happiness in society. Okay, it is something which helps us to fit in the society better, adjust in society, fit in the society. Remember, the opinion is quite similar to what, like I was discussing few minutes back with respect to Charles Darwin. Again, you can connect it with not only fitting in, but also it generates happiness in society, peace and order in society. It also leads to the inculcation of dignity to life. So that is something which you can connect with. So why be moral? You can also connect it from the perspective of Western philosophers. So Western philosophers, they will be talking about it, that it brings happiness. So happiness is attained, you get praise, avoid punishment, you fit in the society better, fit in the society. This I can also connect it with Charles Darwin. And you could also consider dignified life. All right, a lot of points have been already discussed. Another segment with respect to meta ethics is ethical rationalism. What is ethical rationalism? It is based on reason. In bracket, I am mentioning it. Versus ethical sentimentalism. Sentimentalism. Okay. What is ethical sentimentalism? It is based on emotion. So, what should we focus on? Should we focus on reason or should we focus on emotion per se? Okay. So, that is something which all of you can connect with. All right. I hope all of you are able to understand this bit, right? Again, in the first point, what does it mean, this world or not? This world or not? Whether ethics belongs to this world or not means, is it like, is ethics associated with our present concerns which is spread around us, or is it too ideal, not belonging to this world, it is too utopian, too ideal? Okay, yeah, पर too ideal. Okay, fine. So is it too idealistic, too like utopian in nature to achieve? All right, that's what it implies. When ethics is basic of reason versus ethics on the basis of emotion, yeah, that's what it's written. Okay, now, so with respect to this, when we further move ahead, we can also add one more perspective. So here I explained you what is meta ethics, right? Then, along with this, we also have the teleological, deontological, and virtue ethics, right? So, with respect to this, the descriptive ethics, when all of you are, so how people in different cultures act, that is something which is a part of descriptive ethics. Um, Again, I'll be taking this up later also when I'm talking about Lawrence Kohlberg and his, stages of moral development and all that. Anyway, normative ethics. So in normative ethics, we can connect it with deontological, teleological, and virtue ethics. So when we are talking about deontological, all of you are aware of it, that deontological is means based approach. Means based approach or non consequential approach. Non consequential approach, right? So when we are talking about these multiple schools of thought related to normative ethics, that is deontological segment, so what do we imply by this given segment when we are speaking of it? So let me just substantiate it like this. Normative ethics. Normative ethics is associated with multiple schools. Multiple schools have developed. In this, we can connect it from three perspectives. First, we can talk about deontological. Um, Under this deontological segment, I said that it can also be referred as, like, let's say, a non consequential or means based approach. And what do I imply by this? That whatever end might be, but end means goal. Whatever is your goal, that's not important. What means you take, what methods you take to arrive at the goal, that makes the entire difference. One should always focus on one's duty. Okay. So, duty based approach, means based approach is what deontological. See, D is for duty, right? So, a duty based or means based approach is what it implies, what it focuses on. So for example, we can take it from the with respect to duty, we can take it with respect to contract, we can also explain it from the perspective of justice, and we can also explain it from the perspective of rights. So duty, contract, justice, rights, the four perspectives which we all can connect with, right? So with respect to it, when we are talking about it, means based approach, it is so very important for all of us to follow. So what is actually normative ethics? Well, thank you, SME, for supporting it. It is a branch of ethics focusing on the prescription of moral norms, principles, theories. That's what we're like substantiating anyway. So yes, Gandhiji's approach was deontological approach when we are speaking about it. So please elaborate examples. I'm in the process, Jay. I don't think so. I have disappointed you with examples so far. So what actually needs to be exercised is patience, right? So when we are talking about this means based approach related to duty, contract, justice, rights, first and foremost, with respect to it, before I talk about the four segments, we can see that in the means based approach, when we are talking about it, that whatever is our end is not that important as the means, as the, the duty that we are taking up to fulfill that target, to fulfill that goal. So do you remember that when Yudhishthira, he spoke that Ashwathama, and he shouted it, Ashwathama, and very in a meek voice he said that an elephant or a human, and then again in a loud voice he said, is dead. So when Yudhishthira said, that was believable, that was credible. For whom? For Dronacharya. It was impossible to defeat their own guru, who was training them in all kinds of weaponry knowledge, on all kinds of shastra. So when Dronacharya heard that, he said that if my son is dead in the war, then I'll quit the war. So the moment he heard that, Ashwathama is dead, so he, and that too the voice coming from Yudhishthira, and Yudhishthira was referred as Dharmaraja. So definitely that came as a credible, trustworthy statement, not someone lying. And that was the moment he kept his weapons down. He was like, I quit upon the war. But from ethical perspective, people started questioning that how ethical was the act of Dharmaraj, that he was in his own mind saying that, oh, I spoke the truth in the war. That Yudhishthira, I'm sorry, this, what is it, what was that fellow's name? Ashwathama, like an elephant or a human is dead. But you are on a very high pitch shouting that Ashwathama. Then elephant or human, you are saying on a low pitch. Are you not ethically aware that it's incorrect because the entire statement is not heard? And if Dronacharya would have heard the entire statement, would he respond formidably? So, just because you are speaking a correct statement, but the way you have spoken the statement is not correct. So, with the intention, the malicious intention behind, and the way it has been expressed, many people questioned that is this the act of Dharmaraj? Is this the speech of a Dharmaraj? And does it make him a Dharmaraj? Means, is it like spoken by a person who is glorified for like, holding duty or moral code of conduct or dharma, the uprightness of dharma at all times? Is it the, like, let us say, the act of a person who is glorified for being honest and morally upright when this manipulation is like, enacted? So that's something which you can understand, that the deontological approach is something which brings like Yudhishthira under scanner, which makes his act immoral, morally incorrect. Okay. Under teleological approach, you will justify it, that in war everything is fair, samadama danda bhed, everything is allowed. So from the war perspective, you will justify Yudhishthira. But from deontological perspective, not teleological perspective, from deontological perspective, you will not like appreciate what Yudhishthira did. Again, when we are speaking of the means based approach, so the means based approach, you can also connect it like when you are only focusing on means. So, like, let us say if there was a German commander who was only focusing on the fact that I have to follow orders. Okay. Following orders was this person's like following orders or following duty. Okay, was this person's goal. Now, deontology will consider that this is incorrect. Why? Because deontology will be like, it's not only the end that I followed the order, it is also the means. In the process of following order, are you reflecting whether the order is logical or not? Because when you don't reflect upon the logicality of the order, it can lead to sheer injustice. For example, you can like reflect upon the possibility of hundreds and thousands of Jews being killed or gassed. So who is going to bear the brunt of the guilt? When the Second World War was over, so a lot of like, German, I would say, generals and army people who had conducted the war related crime, so they were subjected to a lot of documentaries and real life interviews associated with those Jewish families who suffered in the hands of the German Reich. And when they started watching the movie and the documentary and the interview, many of them were seen in that auditorium crying, wailing. Some of them were having that stiff face, but there was a visible sense of, deep sense of disappointment and melancholy on their faces. So the thing is, why did it happen? Because you focused more on teleological approach, not deontological approach. Okay. So when we are speaking of the component associated with deontological approach, um, I'm unable to connect with the example of ancient texts. Well, Azhar, you will have to quote a lot of ancient texts because, as I said, this is the chapter of ethics. And ethics, your sense of right and wrong also comes from religion. So you can pick a lot of examples from Quran, from Guru Granth Sahib, from Bible, from Mahabharata, because our sense of right and wrong does not happen in the blue. Today you are wearing clothes. Why? If you were born in another society, would you be wearing the same clothes that you are wearing right now? If you were born in a different geographical region or a cultural region. So our sense of what food to eat, I mean, any one of you, if was born in a different location or different area, even I, if I was born in Afghanistan, and if I would have been raised in Afghanistan, would I be your teacher? So there are a lot of subjectivities which are involved with respect to our existence. And the in-depth understanding of what is right, what is wrong is not something immediate. Please mind it, this is not current affairs. This is not economy and polity that immediate facts I'll read and that will be done. Even Indian constitution is gaining its roots. If you see the pages of India's constitution, the very first copy of Indian constitution which is preserved in the National Archives, the paintings of Nandlal Bose is there, and underneath the bottom page of the constitution, Ramayana is painted. Why Ramayana? Because the idea of dharma is debated in Ramayana. The idea of Ram Rajya is debated in Ramayana. What is the ideal way to take care of the people, of the masses, is spoken and debated in Ramayana. So you have to see the underlying current. Just because you people are completely dissociated from your culture, from your roots, from the process of societal inheritance, cultural inheritance, from where you are coming from, that does not mean that the examiner will shy away from raising the questions. In fact, in one of the questions related to essay few years back, there was a question similar to this statement which was spoken by Ramchandra Guha, that a civilization which does not have a sense of history is a failed civilization. Okay, so you cannot deny your mythology, your religion, your culture, the plurality of your history, and all that makes a visible impact in the component of ethics. So what is required? Don't lie on the bed. Don't, like, imagine even I'm sitting upright no at all times, 3.5 hours. Ask yourself how many of you sit with a pen and paper, like have headphones so that distractions of the household are not touching upon you. You just keep your phone and at all times attentively are listening to it. My lectures will be very intense, examples will be very detailed and very intense. Any one of you getting distracted even for 5 seconds, I'm not even saying 10 seconds, 5 seconds, you'll miss the loop, you'll miss the example, you'll miss the context. It's inevitable, because this is no ordinary GS paper. This is ethics. It is supposed to be thought provoking, and thought provoking with respect to our ideals of right and wrong. And ideals of right and wrong don't come out of thin air. It is an inherited thought process, right? So, well, Hardeep, when we are speaking of it, Ramayana and Mahabharata are a part of mythology when we speak of it. What is mythology? एक तो भाई इतना घटिया sense of history है ना सबका. What is mythology? Mythology is not a lie. Mythology is a part of your oral tradition and history. Oral tradition and history determines that what has been the cultural practice of the past. Don't you think that Mahabharata and Ramayana were talking about the, if nothing, if even if we treat it as a piece of literature, is it not depicting about the culture, thought process, morality, do's and don'ts of the people of the past? They were not written in thin air. What people believed and thought was a part of the literature, isn't it? And that's why in history, if you are a thorough student of history, you realize that mythology is also consolidated as a part of history and culture, right? So you need to understand that specific aspect. So you have to, like, constantly lift examples from there. For example, like yesterday I was giving you the example of Jainism, I was giving you examples of Buddhism, but I very clearly am saying that Mahabharata, I did not say Gita, I did not say Ramayana, because I have hardly quoted from Gita or Ramayana. I have moreover quoted from Mahabharata, and you will realize a lot of quotations coming up. Ex UPSC member Dr. Purushottam Agarwal, he is one of the exponents of Mahabharata. And this is a statement spoken by him, that Mahabharata is not a religious book, because Mahabharata talks about all vices occurring in the world. जितने भी पाप हैं वो सभी महाभारत में लिखे हैं, वो कोई धार्मिक पुस्तक नहीं है. It's not a religious book. It is a book which consolidates all forms of sins, which encourages us to understand what are the do's and don'ts, how not to arrive at that sin, how not to arrive at that dissonance, how not to arrive at that moral dilemma when we are speaking of it. So I'm not talking about DP Agarwal. DP Agarwal, Azhar was like a professor from IIT. I'm talking about Purushottam Agarwal, and he was a professor from JNU, and later he became the UPSC member from 2007 to 13. Okay, and he is also an exponent in bhakti literature and has been invited by Oxford University, University of Mexico, University of Pennsylvania to teach in those universities earlier, means a decade and a half back, even before he became UPSC member. So that's the eminence of an intellectual from India across the world. And when such intellectuals speak, it's that level which is also requested to become your examiner, evaluator, your board member. If you people don't pull up your benchmark, if you don't pull up your level of understanding and reflection, how will you build that level at which the examiner is operating and evaluating? I'm giving you the example of a German commander of Nazi Germany, and you're not paying attention to this example. There are so many examples and variety of examples which I keep noting down. Okay, and you have to work upon it. I mean, if you again see over here, when I was discussing about Yudhishthira, there was just one statement that I quoted for from Yudhishthira, this one. After that, here you can see Western philosophers. So there is not one dimensional expression. There is Indian perspective, there is Western perspective. There is Indian example, there is Western example. It is up to you whether you are able to absorb plurality or not. Whether you are able to pull up your socks and run with the level of the examiner, the level which the examiner expects you to understand. So don't have a failed sense of your culture and history. Try to absorb what is there in the syllabus and why is it there in the syllabus. Okay, and try to learn from the civilization, from the past, from the literature, from the books that we have inherited over the centuries, the insights and ethos we have inherited over the centuries. Then you arrive at understanding what do we imply by these terms which are dimensions of ethics. So in dimensions, under normative ethics, we are discussing deontological ethics. And in deontological ethics, I explained it is based on means, when you focus more on means. All right. I hope all of you are understanding this given possibility. We need to be logical. Yes, yes, yes. That's what. So we need to be logical. That's what. So Shanavas, you should listen to him with respect to, because he's my professor. I know him through and through because we have spent decades together. Okay. So he is the man who talks about the relevance of Mahabharata so very much today in the era of the, we can say, moral dissonance. What is right? What is wrong? We are constantly under that. And he's actually working on Mahabharata. He's writing a book related to it. Even Devdutt Patnaik, who is an expert in Mahabharata, so-called expert and a mythologist, um, he also says that in India, there are only three people whom I consider superior to me in explaining and analyzing the relevance of Mahabharata. Okay, and one of them is Dr. Agarwal. The Bhandarkar school of thought, which is associated with interpretation, the pluralistic interpretation of Mahabharata, which is like there are 200 versions which have been consolidated together by Bhandarkar school, and that discusses about our like sense of inheritance related to, Bhandarkar school is out of print. All this so-called right-wing politics and right-wing hooliganism does not support the real intellect. Bhandarkar school is running out of print. It does not have funds to publish the Bhandarkar version of Mahabharata. You can find it in exclusive private libraries. Like there are few seniors whom I know that who have that version of Mahabharata, because it's such an expensive collection. It is like worthy of 50,000 rupees. And there you will find such thought-provoking dialogues and details pertaining to what is morality. What are the debates associated with what ought to be done and what ought not to be done? And that's something which will give you an idea about arriving at ethical solutions. All right. So trust the process, flow with the process. You will get to understand the concepts very thoroughly. Okay. Now, so as I was giving you the example of duty, so the German commander, like let's say when we are speaking of it, um, so be clearly includes all the sins and virtues that was planning to write on the way. Uh, because you just learn what is being taught. Forget about it, okay? When we are talking about it, because for that you need to sit in person with me to get to understand. I mean, explaining your question will take a sizable chunk of the lecture. That how any book can be so clearly written with your 20 years of age and barely 1 year of exposure to the world of learning and writing. Because I'm quite sure you must be a science or a commerce student, even humanities students are not so well read. So in that situation, responding to this question is first requiring some academic in-depth exposure for you, and then only this answer can be responded. So I choose not to participate, okay, with respect to this. Thoda sa padho, clear ho jayega. Maybe just finish few lectures of ethics, you will get to know that there is so much of world of wisdom that is pouring from all directions, and all you need to do is receive, receive and receive. You can choose to do away with examples. Who is saying that if I'm giving you 5 examples, you have to write all 5? You choose to do away with one of the example. You don't like Mahabharata's example, leave it. There are 4 other examples I'm giving you. Choose that. Simple. नहीं अच्छा लग रहा है महाभारत का एग्जाम्पल मत लो, लेकिन एग्जामिनर के ऊपर उसका जबरदस्त असर पड़ेगा. द एग्जामिनर इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी इम्प्रेस्ड बाय इट बिकॉज द एग्जामिनर नोज दैट द बुक इज नॉट religious. The examiner knows that the book is of moral inquiry. The book is through and through discussing and debating over what ought to be and what has happened and how to save ourselves from that. So quoting it in essay or quoting it in ethics will give extra marks. But this is for those who choose to write. Those who don't want, it's okay, you can always skip it. But I will not refrain from giving examples. I'll give examples from all sources so that you are exposed to the debates and dialogues which have existed from the past related to a moral inquiry. This issue, so how many ways and how many different types of thinkers and different texts have discussed about the same issue. And specifically with respect to ethical dissonance and dilemma, there are a lot of inquiries which do come from some common sources. So I'll keep quoting that. All right. So you will be able to understand that bit. Now, so with respect to this, well, I am not interested in YouTube influencers. I don't follow YouTube influencers because I follow academicians and senior professors because they are the one who will be evaluating the copy and they are the ones who have intellectually nurtured me. I don't follow some 20, 30 year old odd people who are not even academically oriented to a subject or have done research related to it. Collecting some garbage facts and making a video out of it is nowadays quite easy and to get millions of views. So what I advise, I mean, like, you know, in the world of sociology also, senior professors, retired professors, professors who have written books, and on the basis of their books, some YouTube so-called like, you know, coaching wala influencers make the video. Their videos go for 80,000, 1 million views, and the professor who has spoken over the issue, that video will have 10,000 views, 8,000 views. So that's the anomaly and tragedy of our times, that when the knowledge is pouring out of the horse's mouth, because of lack of sensationalism, that is not something which becomes populous. People providing interpretations, correct or faulty, they become more popular. But that's not the league that I have to follow as a mentor, and that's not the league I'll advise you to follow, because that can lead to intellectual distractions, because your examiner is not following influencers, the examiner is following academicians. So if you know the trend and how to academically orient yourself, you will refrain from wasting your time like with diverted attentions. Now, going ahead with this, with respect to this, with respect to duty, contract, justice, and rights when we are talking about it. So, with respect to duty, when we are talking about it, I gave you the example that a German commander only focused on his duty, only on the end result, only on the goal. Right. So the person only followed the goal, not the means. And because of which, what happened? We lost millions of people, millions died. Right. Similarly, when we are talking about the component of contract, so in terms of contract, when we are talking about it, we can see the present day soldier, right? The present day soldier, sheer like the person is bound by a contract, and because the person is bound by the contract, the person tends to follow the command of the senior, follow the command of the senior. So the person is not focusing on what the person is doing, the person is focusing on the end. End means whatever is the command, I shall follow it. Again, with respect to, like, when we are talking about justice, so in terms of justice, when we are talking about it, we can think of the reservation policy. The reservation policy is supposed to promote proportional representative justice. But is the reservation policy, does the reservation policy not need reforms? Do we not need to understand and evaluate the possibility of extending the scheduled caste reservation to the Muslims as well as the Christians? The idea of Dalit has been associated with a lot of communities in India who have experienced exploitation despite conversion, discrimination despite conversion. So, should it not reach out to them? Again, should the idea of reservation be extended to those people who have benefited from it generation after generation? So, in the same UPSC exam, if there are 100 seats allocated for scheduled caste, and those people belonging to scheduled caste families who have availed a reservation for past 3 generations, means grandparent, parent, and now the child is availing the reservation, whereas there is a child who is the first generation benefiter, and the person's parent is, like, let's say, a cobbler or a farmer, a peasant. So who deserves the SC reservation more, though both are belonging to the category? So definitely the person belonging to the peasant class. But the thing is, intensity of vulnerability while extending reservation benefits is not something which is practiced. You cannot say that creamy layer is not there. That's a very faulty way of talking about reservation, because creamy layer is not the basis of extending reservation, especially for SC and ST. So please do not use the term creamy layer. It will backfire for you. It will imply that you don't understand the policy of reservation, why it is extended to SC and ST. Okay. So you need to say that, is the reservation policy free from reforms? No, definitely not. So when it is not free from reforms, what is happening? We are just focusing in terms of justice. When we are extending reservation policy, we are just focusing on implementing the policy without reflecting whether the purpose is solved, whether the means taken to extend the reservation policy is always justified. When we fail to understand and interpret the justification, it leads to imbalanced exercise. It leads to not so justified level of extending the reservation policy for the real needy when we are talking about it. So, no, because I'm not from GNU. I have been a hardcore DU student for more than a decade. I took up multiple degrees from it. I was a faculty under Dr. Agarwal when I was teaching at the university, and under this India and South Asia Studies program. Sir was the dean. It is that ways that I know him. Okay. Other than that, some, like, intellectual and family relationship. That's how, but not a student of JNU. If you are, but glad to know that you are from one of the coveted academic institutions per se. Okay. So when we are talking about it, so you can connect it with this given dimension, like justice with respect to reservation policy. Okay, you can connect with this given dimension, that in reservation policy, when we are only focusing on ends, is the means served, is the purpose of justice served, we realize that justice is somewhere compromised. Sometimes the real needy are unable to benefit from it, whereas the people who have benefited from such a policy, and probably do not deserve to get it in the initial go, they are the ones who are getting the benefits associated with it. Now again, when we are talking about it, ma'am, it doesn't focus on the end goal. What happens if end goal is not ethical? Not, this question is not to deal with what we are discussing. We are discussing dimensions of ethics. Don't create further loops, Shalu. Okay. Again, rights. When we are talking about rights, for example, like, let's say, freedom of speech. Okay. So like let us consider, if I'm talking about freedom of speech. Under the component of freedom of speech, when we are talking about it, we can see that if freedom of speech, if we are not focusing on means, then in that situation, what can happen? Riots can outbreak. Irresponsible speech in the name of freedom of speech, if someone is giving hate speech, irresponsible speech, in that situation, riots can outbreak. Religious lobbying can happen, right? Religious lobbying, right? So all those possibilities can unfold. So you can connect with a lot of case studies and examples when we are talking about the dynamics pertaining to like deontological ethics. So deontology will make you experience or make you think about the possibility of or the relevance associated with like the purpose. What is the means? What is what is the way in which we need to follow, okay, this given possibility. So with respect to it, when we are talking about the means, that is something which gives us an idea that whatever we are performing, should we only perform because we have got a right, but we should also perform uh, with a sense of responsibility, that what would be the possible repercussions associated with it. Then we can connect it with teleological. Teleological is also called, I would say, end based or consequential. Consequential. Here you are focused more on like the result, not the means that you apply. So there was this movie Razi. I don't know how many of you have seen. Alia Bhatt is a spy and she is going to Pakistan. She is a Kashmiri girl getting married in the family of the army general of Pakistan, and she's trained as a spy, and she is the one who's snitching all the information from the family, which led to the death of a lot of members from that family. Now the question is that the goal was patriotism. The goal was to save, the submarine, the Indian submarine, the Indian coast, especially like with respect to Gujarat and the region of Mumbai. And yes, a lot of money, a lot of, I would say, possibility was saved for India. But as this girl, she focused on her goal, the means that she applied, which led to death of people, suffering of people, is it justified? So teleological will be focusing on the possibility of ends, just focusing on the goal. My goal is patriotism. In the process of getting the information, a few people have to die, I have to suffer emotionally, that's okay. Okay, so when you're only focusing on the goal, what is good for the nation is good for me. Okay, so that is teleological approach when we speak of it. So that's what something which you can connect with the component of teleological when we are speaking of it. So yes, because you can, because he speaks quite vociferously. There is a very amazing video related to secularism of him. You can seek some insights from there, because he'll never speak something which is not related to like anti-constitution. Now, with respect to it, when we are speaking of it, तो teleological approach किस पे believe करता है? Utilitarianism पे. It it focuses on utilitarian approach. Utilitarian approach. That is maximum good for maximum people. That is maximum good. Yes, Bentham. Maximum good for maximum people. All right. So that's what teleological approach is based on. Last but not the least, we have virtue approach. So virtue approach is based on individual approach. Okay, this is the last one. This is based on individual approach. What does this virtue approach imply? It implies that my values and ideals shape my action. Shape my action. Okay. So, in this given situation, you will see that a person thinks about his or her ideals or values through his or her virtues. In fact, I should note this now. The person uh, the person thinks of the person thinks of his or her ideals through his or her virtues. Okay. And that is something which shapes your action. So, like, let's say I can give you the example of an IPS officer from Aligarh. So, what happened to this IPS officer from Aligarh was that during CA NRC protest in 2019, he was posted in Aligarh, and this boy, he had studied from JNU. So what he saw was that the boys who were protesting, suddenly they got aggravated and they were about to resort to violence. So this guy, he took the microphone, this IPS officer, and immediately instructed them. He was like, listen, you, like all these boys who are activated to perform violence, just listen to me for a minute and then you can resort to your choice, whatever you want to do. He said that I have been a student of JNU and I understand the importance of dissent and protest in democracy. Any of your opinion, which anything which is happening around you, if you don't approve of it or you don't appreciate it, you have the right to protest. You have that fundamental right. But along with that, and I understand that it is very important for democracy to be healthy and vibrant, whereby people are participating and they are able to express their opinions. If they are not approving of something, they are able to put it forth. But at the same time, let us not forget that if you resort to violence and if you resort to any kind of harm of public property, in that situation, the law will get activated, because in the wake of violence, in the situation of violence, coercive action is taken. When coercive action would be taken, the purpose of you raising the voice will fade off. You will be arrested, put behind bars, your academic career will be under jeopardy, under threat. Okay, so in such a situation you will be losing the very purpose for which you are assembling here and protesting. So the very voice will be drowned. People will be like, oh, boys protested, they became violent, and that's why they got arrested. Some lathi charge happened, few boys broke their bones, few were hospitalized, something like that will happen. But the very purpose will be lost. And if the purpose will be lost, what will we see? We will see that the reason for which you are sitting here for hours together, days together, the very purpose, the very ideal, the very thought for which you have assembled will be lost. No one will talk about it. No one will hear about it. So please remember your purpose and guide your actions accordingly. And as this IPS officer addressed this, the boys calmed down. The violence that they would have resorted to, they did not. So please remember, when we are talking about it, the person was moved by the ideals. What was the ideals? The ideals was that pro constitution, freedom of speech, it should be exercised by all, but peacefully, without threatening law and order. So the person communicated the same, that we, the police, are there for your protection. We are there for, like, maintaining law and order. But and we are there for listening to your demands. We are not against you. We are for you. We are with you. But in the same way, you have to understand how to raise the like demand, how to raise the protest. If you break the decorum, then the action shall be taken and the purpose will be lost. So let us together maintain the purpose intact. Let us together work towards the purpose. You protest, you continue with it peacefully. We will keep documenting it day after day, and that is something which will make to the newspapers. People will listen your perspective, your opinion. Rather than you getting arrested, you will be able to speak for it, in favor of it. You'll be able to voice your thought process. So that is something. So whatever is your ideal, that is how you are able to conduct yourself. That is how you are able to exercise power. That is how you are able to regulate what you believe in or think of. All right, I hope all of you are able to understand this. So let's take a break. It's 8:04, and so break till 8, इसमें 15 मिनट्स जोड़ देते हैं. ठीक है, so this will be like around 8:19. Fine. Yeah. Thank you. All right, welcome back, all of you. So, when we are discussing about the given segment of dimensions of ethics, so we are able to complete all these given dimensions which are given here in the diagram. Now we can like reflect upon something more than it. So that is before we start with the next sub segment pertaining to ethics, that is ethics in public and private life. Is it necessary to learn Chanakya Niti and other philosophy related to ethics? Yeah, keep quoting that. That gives you extra marks, Nagaraj. Okay. So, can we please explain why should we not use creamy layer? Bharadwaj, when social issues classes will be discussed and we are discussing about reservation, at that time period I would be discussing about this given subsegment. All right, so yeah, that's what I would like discuss with respect to reservation. All right, this is not the right time to discuss it, about it. So please tell me if means is correct but end goal is not ethical. No, means and ends both are correct. It depends on the situation. Okay, so that is what is required. Again, when we are seeing this, a man without ethics is a wild beast loosed upon this world. That's what Albert Camus spoke of. Don't say Camus, it is Camus as the pronunciation goes. And you can use this quotation even in your answer while you are explaining or substantiating the content. So, ethics in public and private relation, as we are resuming with this given subsegment. So, when we are talking about this given dimension, ethics in public and private relation, we need to first see the word relation, right? So in the domain of ethics in public and private relation, we all can reflect on the word relation. When we are talking about the component of relation, all of us can see that like human beings, when we speak of them, so human beings are social animals, right? And because we are social animals, that's why we can see that interaction takes place. Interaction takes place. And when the interaction takes place, then only human relations are established. And when human relations are established, it is through this establishment of human relation that we can have public or private relation. In private relation, we can connect it with family and friends, and in public relation we can see with respect to, like, let us say, the political relation, professional relation. We can think of, like, a social relation. We can think of international relation, right? So a lot of possibilities can be associated with it. So this is how the interaction like shapes our reality, our possibility per se. So the overall well-being of an individual, it depends on the social relation, because it is the social relation which makes us not just a social animal but capable to survive. See, as human beings, we have limited potential. Like, for example, I can only teach. I cannot become a doctor. I cannot, like, become like, let's say, a 24/7 cook. I cannot, like, take care of the technical aspects of this session. I cannot take care of, like, so many other goods and gadgets and things which I put to use. So a lot of people are assisting and easing my existence, in exchange of which I may pay them something. But the coexistence of different individuals in the society in a supportive role is bringing ease for the functioning of the society per se. All right. So that is something which all of us can focus upon, right? Further ahead, when we are speaking of it, we all can like reflect upon this given dimension. We all can further see, um, just a second. Okay. So, when we are speaking of this given segment related to ethics in public or private relations, we can like reflect upon this given segment first and foremost, coming with respect to the private relation. So in when we are talking about private relation, first and foremost, let me ask this given segment from all of you: which relation is more important technically for us? Is it public relation or private relation, according to you? Is it private or is it public relation? Which is more important? No, I'm saying that which is more important, more, when we are talking about this given possibility. Okay. So few are saying public, few are saying both. Both is something which is not valid. Uh, a few are saying private. All right. It's definitely private relation, because it is through private relations that we learn our basic ethics, values, and morals. It is through private relation that we are inducted into society as a social being. It is through private relation that we learn the basic rules and regulations which has kept the society like smooth, efficient. Okay. So when we are speaking of, which relation is more important, more, and when we have to choose between public and private, you should first and foremost like respect, and you should talk about the importance of private relation influencing an individual per se. Okay. So when we are discussing about this, mentioned the German commander's heinous crime against Jews in terms of deontological, then can the act of suicide bombers be considered as deontological? Well, Sriram, I did not mention it as deontological. I said they were yeah, exactly. I mean, like, I just got confused because that was you just took me back. I had started with another topic anyway. So it was just the last topic. So when we are talking about this given possibility, when anyone focuses only on what they are doing, not the impact thereof, so those individuals can cause harm also for the society. We need to balance both the duty, the responsibility, the cause, as well as the goals. Okay, so yes, you can think of suicide bombers when they are only focusing on the possibility of what they want to create, and not the aftermath, the impact that would be generated for the people. In that sense, you can just think of it, but remember to explain well. Your answers make sense only when you are able to justify it or explain it. So learn that art by practicing answer writing. Okay. So when we are discussing about it with respect to this, so you need to understand that the overall well-being, as I said, that it depends on our social relations. Our standard of life also depends on our social relations and the society by which we are surrounded by. Okay. So there was a very interesting case study which was done in Harvard University. It was associated with the adult development. Have I consolidated? No. Okay, fine. So I'll be like substantiating it here itself. So in Harvard University, there was a study that was conducted which was related to adult development. Okay. And this study, based on adult development, it incorporated the data from 1938 to 2017. It is considered the longest study conducted in human history. In human history. So it studied 250 participants, and in the process of studying the 250 participants, the major objective, it was studied that what is the major objective of these individuals, what is the prime goal of the individuals. So across age, region, religion, and time period, this question was continually raised, that what is the primary purpose, what is the main objective, what is the main objective in an individual's life. Okay, what is the main objective? Like, if I ask you what is the main objective, you'll be like, becoming an IAS. I'll be like, why? So you'll be like, ma'am, because I'll be getting name, fame, power. I'll be like, why? Like, what will you gain from name, fame, power? So you'll be like, my parents will be happy. And I was like, so what will happen? So I will be happy. So in the end of the day, the answer boils down to happiness. Suppose someone says, my goal is to travel, goal is to click photography, my goal is to indulge in cooking, whatever it is, the end purpose of it is what? Attainment of happiness. And how do we attain happiness? So majority of the times the answers pertaining to happiness was associated with our close relations. When our close relations are happy, we tend to attain happiness from it. We tend to have a sense of fulfillment from it. This is what you can sense. And the interesting part was that for the conduction of this study, people from different backgrounds, okay, people from different age groups, people from different, like I would say, ownership of wealth, people from different power structure were taken in this case study. So it was something which was considered to be like, I would say one of the exhaustive core study, which was associated with a very broad base of, we can say, backgrounds of people, and then identifying that what is it that is required. So relationships, when we are talking about it, they are not based on your personality. When we are talking with respect to it, we can also see that there are a lot of things which are associated with it when we are talking about it. In one case, a female SDM cheated her husband. Let us be very clear about it, that what that female SDM did is nowadays a rampant phenomena, bacha. You people have not been exposed, but the moment you will be going into Labasna, Lal Bahadur Shastri National Administrative Academy, you'll be finding that a lot of boys and girls will be getting into a relation just for setting their cadre, setting their rank, setting their comfort, and as per that, they'll be choosing their partner. So there will be a lot of formal adjustments that will be created. A lot of long term relations of men and women that they had in their past and strong, resilient relation will be put to test, whether they are able to survive with those relations or not. And you're thinking about it, I'm talking about 2 decades back, means my seniors also indulged in such acts, men and women both. My batchmates also have seen them doing that, the juniors also, and filtering down to your age. So what is so new and surprising about it? I mean, I don't think so it should be surprising you that seeing that a person is like quitting upon one's partner for the sake of getting a partner from the services. That's such a common and rampant phenomena, isn't it? So that's what. And it's like cheated her husband. When we are talking about it, it's like, what to say, it's something which is a displeasing fact, but it is because of our contorted sense of morality, our compromised sense of morality, which has led to this, right? Again, anyway, it happened in Patna, Akshay, as you are curious about it. So, with respect to this, when we are further discussing about this given scenario, let us focus upon this given dimension. Yeah, it is under the domain of ethics, and ethics will be practiced only when we are able to honor our own virtues, our own ideals, or moral standards. Anyway, so when we are talking about the human relations, they are not based only on personality, they are associated with the things that we are around us, okay, things that we are connected with. So that's why, like, many people think that, oh, just because we will be having a lot of material objects, thus we'll get happiness. It's not so. Sometimes it's seen that the daily wage earners are the happiest people, compared to like people having like a lot of property or like a lot of possibilities. Again, this myth was broken when people were studied during the World War. It was seen that people who were, or even later on in normal warlike situations, people, soldiers posted on frontier, and soldiers getting peace posting, living with their family. So it is expected that soldiers living with their family will be relatively more peaceful and happy, and soldiers living at the frontier will be more strained and will be having an unhappy life. But the situation was just the reverse. The soldiers living on the front were relatively happier because they were living in the moment, making the best out of their present day. Whereas the soldiers living at like peaceful locations, peace posting, they had a lot of reasons to bicker about or to compare, make social comparisons with their relatives, with their friends, with their social conditions, and there were a lot of reasons to add to their misery. So when we are talking about the idea of happiness being attained from relation, the relation is the idea of happiness does not come only from the material aspects we are surrounded by. It is a state of mind that we choose to exist in. Okay, so that's something which all of you need to understand. I can also give you the example coming from Adler. Adler, he said that we have three lives. We have the, like, the professional life, the social life, professional, social, and personal life. And we need a balance between the three. Okay, a balance between the three is something which can lead to good relationships, which can lead to balanced state of existence. Again, if I quote Mahatma Gandhi, and his advice is something which is very profound for all of you to follow. So Gandhi ji, he said that relationships are based on four core principles. Based on four core principles. Please remember this, it will help you also in your private lives. First is respect. Always respect your partner at all times. Many people have the habit of shouting from one room to the other, get this done. The moment you get into the habit of raising your pitch, the sense of respect goes away. I mean, just imagine if you have to talk to your teacher, you have to talk to your professor, you have to talk to your boss. Will you shout from one room to the other? No. Out of sheer respect, you will just go, you will politely say that, okay, sir, this is there or this is there. So, when you are in a relationship, see to it that any act does not lead to disrespect. If you are not appreciative or you are not liking something, just choose to go silent for the moment. Just once you are cooled off, think about the facts of the situation and speak logically rather than emotively. So first thing is, never compromise with the basic respect of the person. We tend to use abusive language, cuss words, becoming physically violent or verbally violent, okay, only when this quotient of respect is lost. Majority of our professional relations survive because even if we fake respect, but at least some kind of external version of respect is there. So for having profound hardcore relations, we need to like have respect. Second, we need to have understanding, a sense of understanding what, like, peoples are experiencing and why they are experiencing. Again, we need to connect it with the component of acceptance. There should be an acceptance to the diversity that people around you possess, that like we can say human beings around you possess. And also there should be appreciation. Okay, appreciation. So you have not heard Gandhi ji, Nitesh? तो गांधी जी को नहीं सुना है तो कोई बात नहीं, जानना चाहिए था, आपके तो नोट पे छपे हुए हैं गांधी जी. ठीक है, so that is something that you need to understand. So that's also there. So when we are talking about it, Nitesh, if you come across new thinkers, try to memorize. That is something which will add value to your answer. Okay. No, no, Nitesh, there are two Niteshes. Okay. So one has like a DM of like an image of Krishna, and that fellow is the one who is asking. You also have some other image. I think it's also something like a spiritual image, but it's just that. And I know you have not asked about Gandhi. Nitesh, please understand, there can be two names common in the class. So there is another Nitesh who has asked that he is not comfortable with new names. So Adler was the new name with which he was struggling. No worries, keep memorizing new thinkers' names because you have Western philosophers and thinkers also. Anyway, so going ahead with this given segment, when we are talking about it, this is how you are supposed to connect with it. Okay, so Adler and Gandhiji. So you can just think about them, that how relationships can be robust, they can be resilient. Okay, so when you are maintaining personal ethics in relationships, whereby you are exercising emotions with morality. Okay, then the nature of sentimentalism that you exercise, the sentimentalism that you exercise will be based on ethics of care. Ethics of care. What is ethics of care? Ethics of care is associated with our personal relationship. It is based on our personal relationship. ठीक है, so personal ethics is something which is based on our emotions plus morality. We try to blend the two. What is in Gandhiji? Please write clear and explain it. Wow, Ajay, you are back again. Where had you disappeared, my dear child? I spoke so vociferously about constitutional morality, and I kept asking, Ajay, are you present? Ajay, are you present? Why did you disappear in thin air like an hour back while I was explaining the segment? And when you get the printout, you will be able to read the material. Don't worry, it's written respect, understanding, acceptance, and appreciation. Because your phone screen is too tiny, that's why you are unable to read it. But once you take the printout, you'll be able to read it, Ajay. All right. And please be vigilant and present in class at all times, right? And explain again only when you are present at all times, right? When you are absent and suddenly reappearing, resurfacing, will it not cause a problem for rest of the class that one absentee student wants the explanations once again? Reflect upon it with your parents. When you raise your voice, with your teachers, when you raise your voice, you show disrespect. And in that situation, your personal relation with parents can get damaged. Why your parents are prohibiting or restricting you from doing something? Why your teachers are encouraging you to do something? If you have a sense of understanding that maybe there is some inherent good for me, why this thing is done or why such a response is maintained, the relationships are maintained or they are saved. Similarly, when there is acceptance of diversity, that yes, their value system can be different from me, and that's perfectly fine. We all are evolving with our value systems. Maybe my value will also undergo change over the years. So let me be fluid about diversity or plurality of values coming from people belonging to different religion, different caste, different community. When you're open about it, that is something which leads to acceptance, tolerance, secularism. That is something not only required for public life but also private life, and appreciation. When you have a deep sense of appreciation for people who are nurturing you and around you in your private lives, that is also makes your relationship robust and resilient. All right, I hope that's understood, Ajay. And next time, please be more thorough, be more present, don't disappear from the class suddenly. All right, so if private relations are more important, then how people ascetic people, like ascetic people who renounce their private lives like Buddha, attain such high levels of ethics and wisdom? Well, Satyam, when we are talking about Buddha with respect to the private and public relation, it's not that he denied the private life. Please try to understand. When your public becomes your private, when the idea of love is not so narrow that I will exercise love only for my son, only for my wife, only for my daughter, only for my mother, when the idea of love becomes so benevolent that you want to care for everyone in this world, you want to give back to everyone in this world, when you want to give the best of what your personality is, what your strengths are, what your wisdom is to everyone in this world, that makes you a Buddha. When when your heart is not shrunken only to private relations. Okay, and that is only when you get into a meditative state about purpose of life, purpose of being born as a human being. Is the purpose of being born as a human being to eat, to defecate, to reproduce, and to die? That is something which animals are also doing. So how is our life different from an animal life? When human beings ask a question very profound, which not every human being has a courage to ask. Okay, so when human beings raise such a question, then in that situation they realize there can be a, what Buddha underwent was initially a dissonance of what's happening around him, and answers not being explained, answers not being gained. So it's not a very comfortable situation that he went to the forest to meditate and he was in a very happy state. He must have undergone a lot of diseases, a lot of pathos, lack of food, mental struggle, emotional struggle, remembering his wife, remembering his son, remembering people. But the thing is, the very desire for quest for life, purpose of life, was something which made him kept going. And when he attained nirvana or enlightenment, he started nurturing the world with that love. So it does not mean that the person is devoid of love. Please understand that. Okay, when Yes, exactly. As put by Pulkit very simplistically, that when public and private blend together and it becomes one and the same, that benevolence creates the idea of nirvana. That is something which takes you close to nirvana. Okay, when we are speaking of it. So I hope that's like addressed now. Anyway, so, with respect to personal ethics, when we are talking about it, so personal ethics is something which is associated with our sense of happiness to begin with, as proved by Harvard University. Personal ethics is something which brings in balance of life. So, with respect to it, Adler has spoken about how the balance between the three brings good relationships in private as well as public life, and it also creates balance in our personality. How Gandhiji has spoken about personal ethics, what should be followed to maintain good private relationship. And again, personal ethics, when we are talking about it, that sometimes along with morality emotions can enter. If emotions enter, sentimentalism can occur. What does sentimentalism take you to? So like, let us consider, suppose if someone sees that the person's neighbor with whom the terms are just okay, formal and fine, if the person sees that that person every once in a weekend comes in a drunk state, and one day the person notices that there is a car, like, that has his car is hit, there is a huge bump and a dent, and when the person was climbing up, then what happens is, like, you are peering and you are listening to the person from the door, because the person is a next door neighbor, and the person in a drunk inebriated state shares this to his maybe sister or brother, that, oh my god, I killed a person, by mistake I killed a person. And the person like, hush hush, just let's go inside. And later on you come to know that the police has come and they have given the vehicle for repair and all that stuff. So the police is like, did a vehicle pass by from this area? And everyone is like, no, we have no idea, but you are aware that yes, this person's vehicle, early morning they went and took it to the nearby garage, and there was some dent in the vehicle, and the boy had come and he had claimed that. Now you will be an upright citizen and you'll be like, oh yes, I will tell the police what is the truth. This man has killed an innocent person. A person has been victimized by his inebriated state. But if the same thing happens to your own father, if the same thing happens to your own brother, will you exercise the same morality? That is the question that is raised under sentimentalism or ethics of care. That are we able to maintain the same morality in the wake of emotions? Okay, so in the wake of emotions, that is something that is put to exercise when we are talking about it. Okay, I hope you are understanding this bit. Again, I'm sorry, Ajay, you joined the session late. You joined the session when I was explaining Gandhiji. You were absent when Harvard University concept was being explained. पीछे के भी slides देखना, बहुत कुछ नहीं समझ में आएगा, because उस समय भी आप absent थे. तो अब हर चीज जो पीछे का छूटा, I won't be repeating myself. No, please understand. With folded hands, I'm requesting. Please be at all times present in the class so that you don't miss anything. Because it becomes very tough for me as a teacher to maintain quality with quantity. I have to finish the syllabus also, right? So that's also there. Now, with respect to this, SME, if you can support him, please do so. This is what I can request for such students who are absentee. Now, with respect to this, when we are talking about it, if in the interview if such a question is asked, yes, then you will have to maintain a moral uprightness at all times, Azhar, right? On sentimental ethics, if the question is asked, you have to maintain that irrespective of who the person is you are associated with, uh, an incorrect act or a crime is a crime, and you are not supposed to exercise favoritism or nepotism at any time. You have to address or report the situation even though it hurts you or it harms you, but you have to always see the larger interest of the society, and in consonance with the larger interest of the society, you have to act upon a given situation. Okay, so now when we are discussing about it, you need to understand ethics of care, okay, versus ethics of justice. So ethics of justice is what we exercise, okay, in public relationship. In public relationship, we want to see fairness. At all times, we want to see fairness. Whereas in ethics of care, we reflect upon personal relationship. We reflect upon personal relationship. So in ethics of care, when we are focusing on personal relationship, in that given situation, we all can, yes, Alfred Adler is what I was referring to, Alok, and good that you can connect with him. So when we are talking about the very possibility of ethics of care versus ethics of justice, we can understand that ethics of care is what we exercise in private relation, where there is emotions along with morality, and that's why the emotions can manipulate our morality, our understanding of right and wrong. Whereas in ethics of justice, generally we exercise it towards strangers or people whom we don't know when we are talking about it. Okay, so with respect to this, something which all of you need to understand or consolidate in your sense of understanding is that, you know, private relationships, they are when they are associated with our family, when they are associated with our friends, and these relations are moreover informal in nature, and we are unable to regulate these relations. They are quite dynamic as per the, like, you know, fluidity of situations, we respond to each other, right? So in this one on one relation, there is a very high degree of emotional bond. Because of high degree of emotional bond, you will realize that in ethics of care, there is high level of internal locus of control. Internal locus of control, because there is a lot of emotion that is involved. Whereas in ethics of justice, you are focusing more on the law of the land, the constitution, the do's and don'ts preached by the society. So there is external locus of control in the ethics of justice when we are speaking of it. So ethics in private relations are quite different, quite distinct when we are talking about it. So this is ethics of care is ethics in private relation, and ethics of justice is ethics in public relationship, right? When we are talking about it. So with respect to it, when we are talking about this given dimension, we all can refer this given segment, and we can like work upon it, and we can see that ethics of care and ethics of justice is something which has to like deal with the way we are getting influenced, the way we are getting affected by our sense of morality, and that morality, how it is shaping our emotions, how it is shaping our responses. Okay, so that is something which all of we need to understand. Again, now the moment I ask that, suppose if UPSC asks you that which relationship is more important, I started the, like after break, I started the session with this question, that which relation is more important. So definitely both relationships are important. But the moment someone is asking more important, then you will be focusing on private relation. That private relations are more important because our sense of morality, our ideals of right and wrong, like for example, my ideals of punctuality, discipline, uprightness, voracious reading, paying attention to language, like, you know, being an honest person, exercising the possibility of like you know uh, the honesty that yes, there can be things which I might not know and I also need to learn. That kind of intellectual curiosity and honesty at all times, these are some virtues which I was introduced by my grandfather. When I was a young kid, I remember that he used to constantly talk about all this, and there was a friend of his who used to come. So my grandpa, like when I was a kid, I remember I was standard 4 or standard 5. They both indulged in a debate related to whether corruption is necessary for the society or not. So I was getting highly swayed by his friend who was actually a corrupt officer when he was present and serving, and after retirement he had created some property. My grandpa was like a hardcore dry honest person. So I kept listening to both the people's debate, and the impressions I gained from my grandfather associated with integrity and uprightness had a deep and profound impact on my personality, which also impacted the way I responded to different situations, reacted to different scenarios, and even in moments where, like, you know, a lot of money was involved, or my business was like is running and there are other issues or situations involved, there is a level of integrity and uprightness with my partners or in other situation with respect to money, because that is something which you inherit from your past. So somewhere our foundations are laid down upon from our childhood. in childhood, if the like ideals are manipulated, it can create ruptures in adulthood. For example, Aurangzeb, if you reflect upon his history, Aurangzeb, if you see Shah Jahan and Jahangir, so Shah Jahan had rebelled against Jahangir. Shah Jahan got, like, a lot of support of Noor Jahan, and she had some authority and power, because you must be aware of the kitchen cabinet concept in Mughal era, right? So that is how, like, Shah Jahan got the courage to rebel against Jahangir. So Jahangir, to teach a lesson to Shah Jahan and crush the rebellion, he took Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb under his tutelage, and he kept them. And at a very young age of barely 6 or 7 years, Aurangzeb was exposed to all this, that my father is rebelling against grandfather. They both are fighting for kingdom. Later on, he saw that Shah Jahan killed his own brother and sat on throne. So he saw that my father killed uncle. So the values and ideals which Aurangzeb was gaining as a young boy, when he grows and as an adult, he kills his own brother, Dara Shikoh. Okay. And the values with which he was nurtured, like, you see, Aurangzeb was a very devout, I would say, and a very deeply religious man. You, when you are reading his autobiography, or rather the letter, the last letter he wrote for his son, he writes that the money that he had earned from sewing the caps, stitching the caps, with that money he should be buried. No muslin cloth or expensive cloth should be used. It should be a regular khadi cloth that should be used to cover his dead body, and it should be, like, you buried in a very regular place with a regular stone. No, like, fancy makbara or something like that should be constructed, and various other things. If you read, that will be a very eye opening possibility, because people in the moments of their death are able to write or create something which is thought provoking, and which is also associated with reflecting upon the purpose of life, that what ought to be the purpose of life. A monarch is talking about do's and don'ts, and what is right and what is wrong. Anyway, so we can see that our private lives, they shape how we become as adults to a great extent. So if we are saying that which is more important, well, important, private and public both are important, but private becomes more important because it is laying the foundation stones of our morality, our sense of right and wrong, of our ethos. The inculcation of values by the family, by the educational institutions, happens at this age. So Aurangzeb was trained in Islamic practices at a very young age. That's why there was a deep impact of the Quran Sharif on him. And that's why he was a devout and a religious man in the later half of his life. So you will see that the childhood morality, the childhood issues, thought processes are something which is playing a very crucial role the way we evolve as adults per se. All right. So I hope all of you can understand that. This can also be connected with the concept of darshan dhyan karma. Yes, like when you are actually exercising darshan dhyan and karma. So Mughal rule, everyone reads. Facts and figures related to Aurangzeb, Shah Jahan, Jahangir, everyone reads. But only when you reflect, only when you introspect, you are able to understand that, oh, it is what a person evolved in private life as a child impacted the public life of the person as the person evolved or grown up. And that is how you connect such examples with ethics. That's not something which, as it is in a written format, you can find in Subbarao in or in other books. Okay, so that's something which you develop with your sense of acumen as you get exposed to facts, and you are connecting one fact with other. So a fact of history which I read in one place, I connected it with ethics. That's a hardcore personal expression. That's how you could see ethics develops per se. All right. So when we are talking about it, पायल, the thing is, अभी हम लोग पब्लिक और प्राइवेट रिलेशन डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. ये सेंटेंस कि औरंगजेब स्प्रेड chaos in his ruling period, क्लास में कौन ऐसा बच्चा है जो ये लिख नहीं सकता? Every single child can write this, right? So try to write something which is profound and reflective rather than generalized gas statements. In answers also, please mind it, everyone, in your GS answers, refrain from writing gas statements. What are gas statements? There are various problems which can be addressed. There are various bad things which happened. A lot of good things led to this. Uh, so this good, bad, chaos, happiness, Do away with that. Have factual information, back it up with critical analysis, make your answers more pointed, okay, so that it is greater, the impact is greater and it is more reflective. I hope all of you will get inspired by this way of thinking. Okay, so okay, all right, Azhar, that does happen once in a while, when we are talking about corruption by need and corruption by greed. So, corruption by need is a massive problem when we are talking about it. Okay, and thanks, SME, for supporting with that answer. Yeah. So, as we are talking about this given dimension, so ethics, when we are talking about it, it is the morality which is shaping our private relations, and it is our private relations as we grow up, it shapes our morality, because we make our own choices, no? It is chicken and egg causation when we talk about relationship between morality and private relation. Okay, so that is what we all can connect with. Ethics and human interface, Ritika. And under ethics and human interface, we are dealing with public and private relation. So, थोड़ा सा किताब का बस पेज पलटना है. All those students who are asking which chapter to read from the book, there have been 3-4 students who have asked. All you need to do is open the book and take 5 to 10 minutes to flip the pages and connect it with the annotated PPT, the title. The title is directly in consonance with the syllabus. Okay, so you just see the title of the topic and then you just flip the pages of the book, you'll find it. It's as simple as that. Just 5 minutes of extra labor, but you connect with the book thoroughly. All right. You are no more kids that I'll be saying that from page number 51 to page number 73, please read it. That will be too kiddish, isn't it? Know your book, flip the book, get a feel of your book. Now, when we are talking about it, um, this is how you need to train students who are in the process of becoming matured, in the process of becoming adults, not behaving like standard 5th or standard 10th kid. Ma'am, page number homework bata dijiye. The entire book is your homework. Identify and love your book. Okay, so ethics in public relationships. When we are talking about it, you can associate ethics in public relationships with respect to, all kinds of relationships. It can be associated with your neighborhood, it can be associated with your professional life. Okay, it can be associated with your we can say political life, political orientation. In terms of this, we can also connect it with 3 organizations of the government, right? You can also connect it with our sense of understanding related to the constitution. So, constitution, which determines the protocol for our behavior. So, and behavior, protocol and behavior gets shaped. So, that's also there with respect to this. Um, what you wrote in the previous slide, it's gone. Yeah, the previous slide I wrote morality and public relation in the bottom. Okay, that is something which you can see with respect to this SS. So all right, so with respect to this, when we are talking about this given dimension, ethics in public relation. So in public relation, you are supposed to connect the given possibility with all patterns or formats of understanding. Okay, there's one more thing which I would like to highlight to all the students, because it's just the second session and many of you will find that I'll be writing a lot on the board. Please understand, the phone you are using is this size, just this size. So reading things on the phone can be little tedious if you're not watching on a tablet, which is a big size, or on a laptop, which is again bigger size. If you're using a little phone, then what I'm writing on the board can be little tedious because you cannot read it. But the board that I'm using is this big. Okay, so what the board on which I'm writing, every time you're seeing I'm bending down, it's this big. So in this big surface, I get the opportunity to create a lot of segments. But I understand that students using smaller devices can have a problem of visibility. Don't lose heart. Pay attention to what I speak. Listen to it carefully, what I speak. The annotated PPTs, when you take a printout on A4 size paper, it will be legible and doable. If still you get stuck up, I'm there to support you. Okay, you have my mail ID. You can use my mail ID for any kind of query. Okay, so this is my mail ID. Any kind of query means if you are getting stuck with anything that's here, so that's there. But please do respect the very possibility that if any kind of query is haywire or little lame, then in that situation I will like choose not to respond, because please understand it starts with there is a pinch and zoom feature. Oh, thank you for this, Anandu, advising this fact that there is the feature of zoom, so you can zoom and see. I was wondering that a lot of students can have a problem if they cannot make any sense of the word, then in that situation. Mohini, thanks for the same information. So yeah, so like you can reach out to me. The only thing which I'm suggesting is, please understand, like the life is pretty hectic these days because of morning and evening batch, which I'm taking at Baiju's right now of ethics. So it's like 2 hours of traveling is involved. I get up at 4:15 in the morning, I leave home at 5 o'clock, and from 6 to 9:30 I teach you people. Again, 3 days in a week I'm also having my optional class, which starts at 1, so I have to reach the place at 12:30, which is nearby only, but 12:30. So I have like 2 to 2.5 hours break in between, in which I just have my breakfast, read something, take some rest, and again prepare myself for the next session. So 1:30 I have to look into the technical setup also for optional, and 1 to 3:30 I'm teaching there. Half an hour students take some basic query, this and that. 4 o'clock I travel from here to here to reach the studio at 5 o'clock. So like I just have 35-40 minutes of relaxation. 5 to 8:30 again I teach the evening batch, and I reach home at almost 9:35, 9:40. So and then you have to clean your face, wash your feet, change your clothes, to take calls of parents here and there, few issues. So by the time I lie down, it's almost 11. So sleeping at 11, getting up at 4:15, whereby I'm having little chunks of time to just eat and complete my professional duties. In such a situation, if you people are uh, sending a mail which is associated with some haywire issue, or something which is too vague, or something which needs a elaborate explanation, which needs if I'm verbally speaking I can speak faster, but if I have to type I'll have to type paras. In that situation only, mind it, only in those situations I will tend to ignore the mail. That is the only condition. And in that situation I will believe that the SMEs will support you. It's not that you are hanging out of the lurch. Someone will definitely support you. But things like you're unable to understand a word, or some concept which I believe you cannot find in basic dictionary, or it's not in Subarao, and it is important, I'll definitely stand for you. I'll definitely explain that to you. Despite this kind of hectic schedule which is going on, like right now for another 2.5 weeks it's going to be there. Any queries related to optional class should be mailed. Please don't ask over here, because that is something which will not be required. I'm just like requesting this because the level of compassion is what I expect from all of you, so that you don't complain that I sent a mail, you did not respond. Because like every day I receive like at least 35 to 40 mails, and I have to quickly filter down which ones are urgent and needs to be responded. Okay, students writing mains are my first priority. Second priority I give to students who are in a severe distress and need some immediate addressal, else things will go haywire. Okay, third is something which I have taught, and it's a technical segment which is not found elsewhere. Okay, so that's how I prioritize the mails. I shared this with you because we are getting associated bit by bit, and our journey is going to be long, so no one should like feel left out. One should understand the dynamics of my life. Just few minutes back I was talking about Mahatma Gandhi saying that respect, understanding, acceptance and appreciation establishes profound relationships. So let us remember this, and on that basis let us create a very healthy possibility of this given dimension. So anything, all those students who are curious about optional, please, this is the mail ID. You can reach out to me on mail ID. Let's not discuss about optional here. Okay. Yes, they are live classes and whatever are the other issues there, not here. Let's get back to it. So when you are understanding this given dimension, so these public relations are what they are, basically formal relations. Okay, along with formal relations, in these relations we can see there is a dominance of reason, right? So there is dominance of reason. We always focus on finding the logic or the reason, and there is always professional ethics because professional life is involved. So there is professional ethics when we are connected to it. Okay, so that's something which we all can understand. And on this basis, what will be there? So there will be social obligations which will be constantly impacting us. Social obligations. There can also be legal obligations because of the professional ethics. So there can be legal obligations that we have to fulfill towards people with whom we are associated with respect to the workplace or with respect to any kind of formal engagement that we have. So, okay. So thank you, SME, for supporting me through and through. It makes a lot of difference, trust me. Okay, so when we are talking about this, I have also created some, like I would say, dimension pertaining to public and private relationship. When we are like comparing the two, that how public and private relationships are correlated with each other. You were talking about three organizations. Yes, the three organization, bacha, is related to executive, legislature, and judiciary. The three organizations of, like we can say, like the functioning of the state that takes place. So executive, legislature, and the judiciary. This is what I implied, and that is something which we can connect with our political allegiance in our like public life. Okay, again, so with respect to this public and private relation, it's a very simplistic chart that is there. The simplistic chart is given because in the mains exam sometimes some very basic fundamental questions are asked. We know about that fact, but when we have to enlist it, we struggle with 2 or 3 points, right? We are able to recall only 2 or 3. So to ease the process that you don't struggle with recalling the points, all the points have been enlisted over here. Okay, so it's not something new or it's not something breathtaking that, oh my god, ye kaun si nahi baat thi. You'll read it, you'll be like, oh, I know every single point, I understand every single one of them. What you actually gain from it is all the points are put easily in one place. So when all the points are kept in one place, it becomes easy for you to recall and write it in the exam. Yeah, okay. Okay, so with respect to this, as we further move ahead, we can reflect upon our link between ethics in public and private relation. Okay, please understand that both, ai, so please understand that both are important. Both are important when we reflect upon it. And when I say that both are important, then we need to understand that the distinguishing between the two nowadays has become too tough because of the vagueness or ambiguity that prevails due to our continual like intermingling of relationships. For example, in office there is a possibility that a person, like starts working and over there makes friends, and there are some such thick friends who are standing for this person through all thick and thin in life, whether monetary support, emotional support, counseling, whatever is needed. And there is a sense of fraternity, a brotherhood which is developed towards that person. So in such a situation, it started as a public relation, a formal relation, and it started filtering down, it started mellowing down and melting down into a private relation. Similarly, there can be a possibility that a couple is staying under the same roof, but bit by bit, a basic sense of respect is left in the marriage, but the idea of love, the idea of romance is gone. Okay, and the couple is staying in the relationship sheerly out of convenience. It is a relationship of convenience because they are able to share the rent, or maybe they have purchased the house together, they both are paying the loan or something like that. and it is more like they are habituated to each other, and they have adjusted to each other's habits, and they don't want to risk by getting into another relation and again afresh making an effort to adjust to another partner. So that's why they are comfortable with each other, but the idea of deep sense of love and deep sense of warmth and looking forward to spend time with each other may have evaporated from the window. In such a situation, the private relation will slowly and steadily start moving to a public relation, more like a formal relation, doing things for the heck of it, more like a duty, more like just fulfilling certain targets. So nowadays, when we are talking about this very component of public and private relation, this is something which is very interesting, especially in the era of globalization, isn't it? So, private relations, if I speak of the most private relation, so the example which is generally quoted is that of Romeo and Juliet. Means a hardcore, in-depth romantic relation when like they are ready to die for each other or something like that. So Romeo and Juliet, ultimate level of sacrifice and bonding is created. Whereas when we are talking about the component of public relation, can we relate the concept from formal and informal organization? No, not really. Utkarsh, if you understand the meaning of formal and informal organization, you will be able to understand that formal can be associated with bureaucracy, formal can be associated with any organization which is bound by rules, regulations. Informal organization can be associated with the we can say the informal sector, which is a part of the gig economy. So why to mix so much, right? When we are talking about public relation, it incorporates all formal organization, informal organization, all patterns, all. Okay. Like people we are connected with. Today's nibba nibbi. Okay, yes, you can consider that also with respect to private relation. So there was a very uh, famous song last year, no, that was that was like, what was it, noon roti khayenge, something like that. It was, I smiled and I was like, okay, there is a certain level of innocence at that age where people can sing such songs, that I can have salt and chapati but still I can be like staying with you. Yeah, the song theek hai, exactly. Now with respect to this public relation, Rahul and Sony, that I saw on wall, no, it's not public relation, Kivika. They are declaring it to public, but the relation is private. Okay. Declaration, public declaration does not mean it is a public relation. Okay, public is always formal. So okay, now with respect to, yeah, I mean, like I also like get all sorts of sources of entertainment, so that's why I also listen to it, Hariom. Now public relation, as we are talking about it, so they are like more formal in nature, as all of you can understand. So I would say in public relation, with respect to formal, a slightly like lesser than the ultimate utopian version of formal, still closer to it we can consider is Weber's idea of bureaucracy. Weber's idea of bureaucracy, when we speak of it, he was under the opinion that, the possibility of bureaucracy should be in such a manner that it is based on formals, rules, and regulation. The bureaucrats are not like emotional beings. They are not connecting with people emotively. They are all at all times following the formals, rules, and regulation. But today's bureaucracy, okay, the modern day post Weberian bureaucracy, post, okay, Weberian bureaucracy is more associated with what? It is more associated with, I would say, getting closer to people. Like, the police is friendly to the senior citizens, or you could see during COVID, it went to the senior citizens staying alone and got their birthday cakes also cut. We could also see there was a lot of interaction taking place whereby the police was supporting people in distress or in isolation, right? So Max Weber is a thinker. People who don't know, Max Weber is a thinker. In GS paper 4, 2013 or 14, either of the years, there was a question. As far as I can recall, it was 2014. There was a question related to Weberian model of bureaucracy, because Weber is a thinker. topics of public administration and bureaucracy is there in the syllabus, and Indian and Western philosophers and thinkers is in your syllabus. So Weber has been asked in GS paper 4 as a question. Hence I take the liberty of taking his name, and anyway I would have taken the liberty because paper 4 gives us the intellectual freedom to think of thinkers to bring their name like over here and then substantiate it. Yes, like when we are talking about Weber, he is a thinker in public administration, optional also, sociology optional also. But here we are not recalling him from the perspective of optional. Here we are recalling him from the perspective of public relation. That how the continuum of public and private relation. So this is also called bipolar continuum. How this bipolar continuum associated with public and private relation is something which is making possibility of interaction take place. So this bipolar continuum, if we are seeing like in India specifically, we can see that very quickly the public relation it starts slipping into private relation, isn't it? So like for example, as I shared with you, like suppose you have boarded a bus and you start like talking to the next seat person or the conductor, and then you start asking, okay, from which village, which place, this and that, and then there's a possibility that people may exchange greetings, and then they come to know about their family members, their struggles of life, some advice exchanged with each other related to health or related to well-being or related to some kind of immediate help or support needed. And after that, as the person is deboarding the bus, there's a fair possibility that the person is touching the feet, okay uncle I am going, or saying namaste uncle I am going, or something like that. So very quickly the public relation starts slipping into the private domain. And I was giving you that in the era of globalization, okay, in the era of globalization, when private relations start becoming formal, okay, when private relations start becoming formal, when you are just letting the relationship survive for the sake of it, okay. So when that relationship is just surviving for the sake of it, so in that given situation you can find that when the couple is making an adjustment, you must have seen that TV series Decoupled, which had come on Netflix. In Decoupled on Netflix, they showed this given possibility that the couple started deciding the possibility of undergoing a divorce, and they said that but we'll stay in the same house. So it's a big house, and the writer is the fellow is a writer, his wife is also in some corporate sector. So they decide that we'll continue with the same kind of relationship, and we will also get into the possibility of you can get your partner, I can get my partner even after divorce, but our house is comfortable, we have adjusted, our daughter is staying here, so she will also feel that somewhere parents are there, yet we will give privacy and freedom to each other. So this kind of idea is like shifting from private to public, okay, getting more formalized, more rule bound, like that. Yes, a movie, okay, somewhat in Chichore also, all right, I've not watched that movie, so that's also there. When will we study about ideas and philosophy of these thinkers? That will be Western philosophers and thinkers. When that chapter will start, then you will be studying about it, Hariom. That is how you move systematically, paper after paper, and like topic after topic. All right. So that's how you are supposed to connect with it, okay. So nowadays the bureaucrats, they need to maintain a fine balance between like public relation and at the same time the humane touch or the compassionate touch towards the sections they are serving. So that is something which is leading to the shift which we all can see unfolding. Now the separation of public and private life, when we are talking about it, so if a person becomes bankrupt, okay, because of his lavish private lifestyle, like hedonism, the person is purchasing a lot of cars, a lot of expensive perfumes, clothes, etc etc, okay. So in that situation the person is becoming like bankrupt because of the lavish lifestyle. The person like automatically becomes illegible, we can say, from various constitutional or statutory or public posts in India. The person cannot contest for elections, the person cannot cast the vote. Okay, so because if such a person who is financially distressed so very much, if such a person is holding a public office, such a person will have a tendency to accept bribes, such a person will have a tendency to go corrupt in the public life. That's why we can see that the private life influences the public. Okay, so this private is influencing what? The public. You cannot hold public posts. Okay, you can see that. So that is how, to after a certain extent, public and private life cannot be separated. We cannot like distance the two when we are speaking of it, because if, like, such financial distress is there in his private life, it will impact the public position, the public office as well. So that's why we need to understand that private life, it does have, mind the word, it does have bearing on public life, and we cannot see them as isolated entities or units. And that is probably the same reason because of which judges have to rescue themselves from cases which is involving their relatives or friends, because the favoritism can be slapped upon them, or it can be said that the judge, like, favored his or her relative. Again, you can see, like, when President Clinton's impeachment process was going on, this very possibility was again taken care of. So that's something which you need to understand. Why? Because why do you see that in America, every president who's contesting for election goes to the church for the Sunday mass? Not every time, but as elections approach, they go for the Sunday mass. What's the reason? What's the logic? Because the person wants to, when the person is going to the church, the person is going with the entire family, like the wife or the husband is there, the children are there. So when everyone is going to the church, the person comes across as a family man, that, oh, this is a family person. And when you have an impression of a family person, means you're responsible towards your family, you're emotional towards your family, you stand for your family. So that creates a very positive impact, whereby the notion that goes is that if the person is a family man, the person is also a responsible person. Okay, I hope all of you are able to connect with that. So, a family person is also a responsible person. And that's why every now and then you can see that the idea of happy family image is built during elections by the presidential candidates on and off. That's what you can see. But in India, we can see that the scenario is different. It is preferred to, like, hide the private life. People have a tendency not to talk too much about their private life or to showcase a lot about their private life. Like when we are talking about, like, like Manmohan Singh's wife, people don't know, or Anandi Bai Patel's husband, people will not be knowing that who the person is, because there is like a kind of, I would say, a kind of segregation or isolation, which is generally maintained, that how much should go to the public and how much should be kept to private. Okay, so we have in different cultures and civilizations our different take between the relation between public and private. But we do understand that the public does influence the private, and the private life, the kind of person you are in private life, does influence your public demeanor, your public standpoint, your perspective, and the kind of person you can be for the larger society. Okay, so but at the same time, we also need to understand a specific disclaimer. For example, when we are talking about Mahatma Gandhi's son said that he is a very bad father, because he did not prioritize the interest of his son. His eldest son alleged that he is not a good father. He does not take care of him as a son. In moments when he needed his father to be there, Gandhi was missing. He was more concerned about the public life, his public image, his social life. And you see that his son was also very caustic about his father. So it's not necessary, again, you need to understand that it's not necessary that bad private life will imply bad public life also. If someone is having a bad private life, the person will be professionally incompetent. And that is probably what was considered when Bill Clinton won the vote in his favor and he was reinstated to power after the Monica Lewinsky case. And you can like connect with that given idea that that happened simply because of the reason that the when we are talking about private life and public life, we can understand that people could draw the line that maybe in his private life he may not be a great husband, but in his public life, with respect to his leadership skills as a president, we need not compare the two. So probably that's why the citizens of America gave him a chance to continue his presidentship when we are talking about it. So in the similar manner, you can see a lot of kings, a lot of prime ministers, a lot of presidents. They may not have a very sound or foolproof private life, but that does not imply that just because they are not great husbands or fathers or lovers, they will not be great public leaders. So it's not necessary that always there will be a consonance between public and private life per se. Okay. So yeah, this was also shown in the series Family Man. So very true, so very true. Okay. So like that is also in the movie Soldier by Alau Arjun. Okay. All right, so all of you have seen a lot of movies also. Good, good. Keep recalling, because that is how the subject becomes interesting. That is how you tend to connect with these concepts thoroughly. Okay. Can there be inconsistencies in public and private life? So very true. And that is one of the prime reason because of which we can see the Brahmo Samaj movement came to a halt when Keshab Chandra Sen, its leader, his daughter was 16 years of age, and he was one of the protagonist leaders who was against child marriage. So the Maharaja of Kuch Bihar, probably to test his uprightness, he sent the offer of his Keshab Chandra Sen's daughter getting married to the prince of Kuch Bihar. And his wife got very rigid. All the relatives got rigid. That, are you crazy? Such a rishta you hardly get once in a lifetime opportunity. It is the case of the girl's life, and anyway, within a year or two, she'll get married. So how dare you stop that opportunity coming her way? And this and that. So much of pressure that man had to get his daughter married. And because of that, what happened? Because of that, people who trusted Brahmo Samaj in the ideals of Brahmo Samaj, they were like, oh, there is an inconsistency. This man speaks something else in public life, but does not follow it in his private life. So that creates a dissonance, and that creates mistrust amongst the people. And that's something which can also lead to some kind of disastrous result in terms of producing credibility. State encroach in our personal sphere when we ask about it? So when we are talking about this given possibility, I have given you some facts to reflect upon. You can just read it in your private space. So read this state encroachment in personal sphere. I have given you a lot of interesting examples. Please read this. This is your homework, which I can say. And after reading this bit, it's not like that much. You can just reflect upon this given question, which was given by Confucius. All human beings are fundamentally good by their nature or in their nature. If uncorrupted by external circumstances, their actions will be morally correct. Okay, so role of family, society, and educational institutions in this context. And this is the segment which we are going to start with tomorrow. That is the role of family, educational institutions, and society in inculcation of values. So tomorrow we will be reflecting upon the chapter of values. All right. So let us continue with this discussion. You have the homework to read these two slides. Okay, state encroachment in personal sphere and the case studies related to role of cinema and how it is impacting our lives. Just two slides. Go through it. Let me know if you are getting stuck with any concept. All right. So let us again resume tomorrow's sessions with values. Thank you so much, all of you, and have a great day ahead.